For 20 years, Justine Musk stayed silent. Silent about the divorce papers left on a kitchen counter. Silent about the father who missed birthdays for business meetings. Silent about the psychiatric evaluation she found hidden in a folder, one that explained everything about her marriage to the world's richest man. But when her daughter legally disowned Elon Musk at 18, declaring she wanted no relationship with my biological father in any way, shape, or form, Justine knew the silence had to end. What she's about to reveal isn't just celebrity gossip. It's a 20-year nightmare of loving someone incapable of loving back, of raising 5 children essentially alone while married, of discovering her husband had written a cost-benefit analysis of their marriage, and she came up net negative to mission objectives. This is the story Elon Musk never wanted told. The secret that explains his pattern with every woman he's ever been with. The truth about what it costs to be married to a genius who sees emotions as inefficient noise and relationships as systems to optimize. And it all began with a phone call on a rainy November night. The rain hit Sarah Chen's apartment windows like tiny fists demanding attention. She sat at her kitchen table in Austin, Texas, nursing her 3rd cup of coffee and staring at her laptop screen. The cursor blinked at her mockingly. Another article about tech startups. Another boring interview with another venture capitalist, talking about disruption and innovation. Sarah rubbed her tired eyes. 6 years as a journalist for Silicon Valley Today magazine, and she felt like she was writing the same story over and over, just changing the names. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer her, probably another PR person pitching a story about some app that would change everything. They never did, but something made her swipe to accept. Hello. Is this Sarah Chen, the journalist? The woman's voice was quiet, almost shaky. Yes, this is Sarah. Who's calling? A long pause. Sarah could hear breathing on the other end and the faint sound of wind. My name is Justine Musk. I think I'm ready to talk. Sarah sat up straight, nearly knocking over her coffee. Justine Musk, Elon Musk's first wife, the fantasy writer who had mostly disappeared from public life after their divorce 16 years ago. MS, Musk, I'm surprised to hear from you. What would you like to talk about? Another pause. When Justine spoke again, her voice trembled. The truth about my marriage, about what really happened, about things I've never told anyone. Sarah's heart raced. Every journalist in the tech world had tried to get an interview with Justine Musk. She'd always declined, staying silent while Elon became the richest man on Earth, while his face appeared on magazine covers, while the world debated whether he was a genius or a villain. I'm listening, Sarah said carefully. Not over the phone. Justine's voice grew stronger. Can you meet me tomorrow? I'm in Los Angeles. There's a coffee shop on Sunset Boulevard called The Grind, 2 o'clock. I can be there, Sarah said immediately. But can you tell me what this is about, just so I understand her? It's about the nightmare, Justine interrupted. Her voice dropped to almost a whisper. The 20-year nightmare of being married to Elon Musk, and why I finally have to break my silence. Sarah grabbed a pen, her reporter instincts kicking in. What changed? Why now? Because people worship him, Justine said, and Sarah could hear anger creeping into her voice. They think he's saving humanity. They make him into this hero. But they don't know what it cost. They don't know what he's really like behind closed doors. They don't know about the folder. The folder. I'll show you tomorrow, just promise me something. What? Promise you'll tell the truth, not just the sensational parts. The real truth about what happens when you love someone who can't love you back. About what it's like to watch your children grow up without a father who's standing right there. About the secret I've kept locked away because I thought it would destroy him. But I realize no, he's destroying himself and taking others down with him. Sarah's hand was shaking as she wrote, I promise I'll tell the truth, whatever you share with me. Good, Justine's voice softened. I need to go, 2 o'clock tomorrow. Come alone and Sarah. Yes. Bring a recorder. This story is going to take a while. The line went dead. Sarah sat frozen for a full minute, staring at her phone. Then she jumped up and opened her laptop, fingers flying across the keyboard. She pulled up everything she could find about Justine and Elon Musk's marriage. The public facts were sparse. They married in 2000 when Elon was building his first companies. They had 6 children together, though their first son, Nevada, died tragically at just 10 weeks old from SIDS. Then came twins in 2004, triplets in 2006. They divorced in 2008, right when the economy crashed and Elon was fighting to keep Tesla and SpaceX alive. The divorce seemed civil from the outside. Joint custody. Financial settlements handled privately. Justine had written a few articles right after the split, talking vaguely about the challenges of being married to an entrepreneur. But then she'd gone quiet, really quiet. Meanwhile, Elon's star kept rising. He married actress Tallulah Riley twice, divorced her twice. He had more children with musician Grimes, more children with a Neuralink executive. He bought Twitter and renamed it X. He became the richest person in the world. And through it all, Justine stayed silent. Sarah clicked through old photos. There was young Justine, dark-haired and beautiful, standing next to a much younger Elon at some tech conference in 2001. She was smiling, but Sarah noticed something. Her eyes looked tired even then. Another photo from 2006 at a Tesla event. Justine stood in the background while Elon talked to engineers. She had 3 children under age 3 at that point, Sarah realized. In the photo, she looked like a ghost, pale and thin, almost invisible despite standing in a room full of people. The last public photo was from 2008, just before the divorce was announced. Justine looked exhausted, her smile forced. Elon wasn't even looking at her. He was staring at his phone. Sarah zoomed in on Justine's face in that photo. She recognized that expression. She'd seen it before on women who had lost themselves completely, who had sacrificed everything for someone else's dream, and woke up one day not recognizing the person in the mirror. What nightmare had Justine lived through? What was in this mysterious folder? And what secret had she kept for 2 decades? Sarah's phone buzzed again. A text from her editor. Got anything good for next week's issue? Sarah smiled as she typed back. I might have the biggest story of my career. Can I have the cover? Her editor responded immediately. Depends, how big? Sarah hesitated, then wrote, Elon Musk's first wife is finally ready to talk. The real story, everything. 3 dots appeared as her editor typed. Then, get it, whatever it takes, this could be huge. Sarah closed her laptop and looked out at the November rain. Tomorrow, she would drive 4 hours to Los Angeles. Tomorrow, she would hear the truth about one of the most famous marriages in Silicon Valley history. She thought about Justine's voice on the phonia, scared but determined, broken but brave. The 20-year nightmare, Justine had called it. Sarah had no idea what she was about to walk into. But she knew instinctively that this story would change everything for Justine, for Elon's public image, and maybe for every person who had ever lost themselves in someone else's shadow. She set her alarm for 5 a.m. and tried to sleep. But her mind kept racing, wondering what secrets waited for her in Los Angeles, hidden in a folder that Justine Musk had kept locked away for 16 years. Tomorrow, everything would change. Sarah arrived at the Grind coffee shop 15 minutes early. The place was small and tucked away on a quiet corner of Sunset Boulevard, the kind of spot locals knew about but tourists never found. Through the window, Sarah could see mismatched furniture, plants hanging from the ceiling, and a chalkboard menu with careful handwriting. She ordered a green tea and chose a corner table where she could see the door. Her recorder sat ready in her bag, along with 2 backup phones just in case. Her hands felt sweaty. In 6 years of journalism, she'd never been this nervous for an interview. At exactly 2 o'clock, the door opened. Justine Musk looked different from her photos. She was 52 now, her dark hair streaked with gray that she hadn't bothered to dye. She wore jeans and a simple sweater, no makeup, no jewelry except a small silver ring. But her eyes were what caught Sarah's attention. They were intelligent and sad, the eyes of someone who had seen too much. Sarah, Justine approached the table. MS, Musk, thank you for meeting me. Sarah stood, offering her hand. Just Justine, please. Her handshake was firm. I stopped being MS, Musk, a long time ago. Legally, I'm still Justine Musk because of my children, but in my heart, I'm Justine Wilson again, the woman I was before. They sat down. Justine ordered black coffee, and for a moment, they both just looked at each other. I should tell you, Justine began, I almost canceled this morning. 3 times I picked up the phone to call you and say, couldn't do it. What stopped you? Sarah asked gently. My daughter. Well, my child. They changed their name legally 2 years ago, Vivian. She doesn't want anything to do with Elon anymore. Justine's voice caught. When your child legally disowns their father, you realize silence isn't protecting anyone. It's just letting the same patterns continue. Sarah pulled out her recorder. May I? Justine nodded. That's why we are here. Where should we start? Sarah asked. Justine smiled sadly. At the beginning, I suppose, when I was young and stupid and thought love could fix anything. Justine's eyes grew distant as she traveled back in time. I met Elon in 1989 at Queen's University in Ontario, Canada. I was 17, a freshman studying literature. He was 18, already obsessed with physics and computers. He was different from other boysa, intense, brilliant, always talking about impossible things like electric cars and rockets to Mars. Sarah leaned forward. This part wasn't in any article she'd read. He asked me out by handing me his dorm room number on a piece of paper. Very romantic, Justine laughed bitterly. Should have known then. Not a dinner invitation, not flowersa, just an address. Like I was a problem to solve, not a girl to court. But you went. Of course, I went. I was 17 and he was fascinating. We dated for a while, but it was complicated. Elon transferred to the University of Pennsylvania, and we lost touch. I focused on my writing, trying to become a fantasy novelist. That was my dream, to write books like the ones I loved as a kid. Justine took a sip of coffee, her hands wrapped around the cup like she needed the warmth. Fast forward to 2000. I'm 28, working at a bookstore in Toronto, still trying to get published. One day, I get an email from Elon. He's in Silicon Valley now, running a company called X.com that's merging with another company to become PayPal. He's about to be very rich. And he remembers me. What did the email say? Sarah asked. He said, I always thought you were the most interesting person I knew. Are you still interesting? Justine shook her head. Should have been insulted, but instead I was flattered. Elon Musk, this rising tech star, remembered me. We started emailing, then talking on the phone. He flew me down to California. Justine's voice softened, just for a moment. And he was still that fascinating person, maybe even more so. He had this vision, he was going to change the world. Electric cars, space exploration, making humanity a multi-planetary species. When Elon talked about the future, you believed him. You wanted to be part of it. You fell in love, Sarah said. Fell in love with the dream, Justine corrected. Fell in love with the idea of being beside someone who was going to do impossible things. I thought I could be his partner, his equal. I thought we'd build a life together while he built companies. I was so naive. She pulled out her phone and showed Sarah a photo. Young Justine and young Elon at their wedding in January 2000. They looked impossibly young. Elon wore a suit that didn't quite fit. Justine wore a simple white dress. They were smiling, but Sarah noticed Elon was looking at the camera, not at his bride. It was a small ceremony in California, Justine continued. Nothing fancy. Elon said big weddings were a waste of resources. Agreed because I thought I was being practical, supporting his vision. Looking back, I realize everything was always on his terms. Where we lived, California, because of his companies. Where we went, tech conferences and investor meetings. What we talked about, his work, his stress, his problems. What about your writing? Sarah asked. Justine's laugh was hollow. I tried, I really did. But being Elon Musk's wife became a full-time job. There were dinner parties with investors where I had to be charming but quiet. There were events where I had to look perfect so Elon looked successful. There were days when he'd work 20 hours straight and need me to handle everything else: food, laundry, scheduling, life. She leaned back in her chair. And then there was the work itself. Com was merging, becoming PayPal, but it was chaos. Elon was fighting with other executives. He was obsessed, working 100-hour weeks. I'd wake up at 3 a.m. and he'd be gone at the office. I'd make dinner and he wouldn't come home. I'd try to talk about my day and he'd interrupt to take a call. "Did you tell him how you felt?" Sarah asked. "All the time. And he'd say, just wait until after this launch, or just wait until we close this funding round, or just wait until the company stabilizes. There was always something more important than me." Justine's eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them back. The worst part was I understood. I really did. He was building something important. PayPal was going to change online payments. Later, Tesla would change cars. SpaceX would change space travel. How could I compete with saving the world? How could my needs matter compared to his mission? "So you made yourself smaller," Sarah said quietly. "I made myself disappear," Justine whispered. "I stopped writing because I didn't have time or energy. I stopped seeing my friends because we'd moved to California and everyone I knew was back in Canada. I stopped being Justine Wilson, the writer with dreams, and became Mrs. Elon Musk, the pretty accessory who smiled at parties." She wiped her eyes angrily. And the thing is, he didn't even notice. Years later, after the divorce, I asked him, "When did you realize I was unhappy?" You know what he said. "I didn't. You never said anything." But I had said things. I'd said thousands of things, he just never heard them. Or maybe he heard them and decided they didn't matter as much as the next product launch. Sarah's tea had gone cold. She was completely absorbed in Justine's story. "When did you realize the marriage was in trouble?" she asked. Justine's face darkened. "When our baby died. When Nevada died and Elon wouldn't grieve with me. That's when I knew I was truly alone. That's when the nightmare really began." She looked at Sarah with such raw pain that Sarah had to look away. "Do you want to hear about that?" Justine asked. "About losing a child and losing your husband at the same time? About grief so deep you can't breathe, while the person who should understand is in his office building rockets?" Sarah reached across the table and took Justine's hand. "Only if you're ready to tell it." Justine took a shaky breath. "I've carried this for 22 years. I think it's time." The coffee shop sounds faded away, the hiss of the espresso machine, the murmur of other conversations. There was only Justine's voice, about to reveal the deepest wound of her life. "His name was Nevada Alexander Musk," Justine began, "and he lived for 10 weeks. Let me tell you about the worst year of my life and how Elon Musk broke my heart when I needed him most." Justine stared into her coffee cup as if the dark liquid held answers to questions she'd stopped asking years ago. When she spoke again, her voice was differenta, smaller, younger, like she'd traveled back to become the woman she was in 2002. "I found out I was pregnant in early 2002. We'd been married 2 years. Elon was deep into starting SpaceX. He just sold PayPal to eBay for over $1 billion. And instead of relaxing, he immediately poured his money into this crazy idea about private space travel." Sarah watched Justine's hands tighten around the coffee cup. "I thought a baby would change things. I know that sounds stupid now, but I really believed it. I thought, this will make him slow down. This will make him realize family matters. Imagined him holding our child, falling in love, becoming present in our lives." "How did he react when you told him?" Sarah asked. Justine's smile was sad. "He said, 'That's great. We should hire a good nanny,' not 'I'm so happy' or 'can't wait to be a father,' just straight to logistics. Problem solving. That should have told me everything." She pulled out her phone and scrolled through old photos, finally stopping on one. She turned it toward Sarah. A much younger Justine, heavily pregnant, stood in front of a half-furnished nursery. She was smiling, but her eyes looked uncertain. "That was me at 8 months. I spent weeks getting the nursery perfecta, painting walls, choosing the right crib, reading every baby book I could find. Elon came in once, looked around for 30 seconds and said, "Looks efficient," then went back to his laptop. He was designing rocket engines in our bedroom while I was preparing to bring our child into the world. Justine put her phone away and continued. Nevada was born on May 18, 2002 in Orange County, California. He was beautiful, perfect little fingers, dark hair like Elon's, my nose. For about 12 hours, I thought maybe everything would be okay. Elon came to the hospital, held Nevada, took photos. He seemed almost soft, almost like a regular dad. But, Sarah prompted gently. But the next day, he was back at the SpaceX facility in El Segundo. He said he'd hired the best baby nurse in California, that I should rest, that he had a critical meeting with potential investors. I was alone in the hospital with our newborn, and my husband was showing rocket designs to billionaires. Justine's voice cracked, but she pushed forward. The first few weeks were hard, like they are for every new mother. Nevada cried a lot. I was exhausted, but I was also happy, you know? I had this tiny person who needed me. I felt purpose for the first time in years. I wasn't just Elon's wife, was someone's mother. She paused, and Sarah saw her gathering strength for what came next. Elon barely came home. When he did, he'd look at Nevada like he was a complicated piece of technology he couldn't quite figure out. He'd hold him awkwardly for a few minutes, then hand him back to me or the nurse. One night, Nevada was crying and I asked Elon to help. He said, "I don't know what to do with it. Like our son was a broken machine." Sarah felt her chest tighten. That must have been incredibly lonely. "Lonely doesn't cover it," Justine said. "I was surrounded by helper, nannies, house cleaners, people Elon hired, but I'd never felt more alone in my life. The one person I needed wouldn't show up. And when I tried to talk to him about it, he'd say I was being emotional, that I should be grateful we could afford help, that other women would kill to have my resources." Justine took a shaky breath. Nevada was 10 weeks old when it happened. July 2002, it was a Saturday morning. I put him down for a nap in his crib. I was so tired, I hadn't slept more than 2 hours straight in weeks. I lay down on the couch just for a minute. Tears started sliding down her cheeks now, and she didn't wipe them away. When I woke up, it had been an hour. The house was too quiet. I got up and walked to the nursery, and I knew, even before I looked in the crib, something in my body knew, a mother knows. Sarah's own eyes filled with tears. "Justine, I'm so sorry." He wasn't breathing. His little body was still warm, but he wasn't breathing. I screamed, called 911. I did CPR like they taught me, breathing into his tiny mouth, pressing his chest. The paramedics came. They tried everything, but he was gone. Sudden infant death syndrome, they said. Nothing I could have done. It just happens sometimes. Babies just stop breathing, and no one knows why. Justine covered her face with her hands for a moment, then forced herself to continue. They took Nevada to the hospital even though there was no point. Called Elon, he was at SpaceX, of course. I could barely speak, I was crying so hard. I said, "Nevada's gone. Come to the hospital. Please come." And you know what I heard in the background? Someone asking Elon a question about fuel ratios. He put his hand over the phone to answer them before he said to me, "I'll be there as soon as I can." Sarah felt sick. How long did it take him? 4 hours, Justine said flatly. Our son was dead, and it took him 4 hours to leave work. He said later there was a critical test happening, that he had to make sure the team knew what to do, that he came as fast as he could. But Sarah, our baby, was dead. What test could possibly matter more than that? The coffee shop suddenly felt too warm. Sarah wanted to reach across the table and hug this broken woman, but she stayed professional, kept listening. When Elon finally got to the hospital, he was different. Cold, shut down. He looked at Nevada's body for maybe 30 seconds, then said, "We should go home. There's nothing more to do here." Wanted to hold my baby. I wanted to say goodbye properly. But Elon was already walking toward the exit, and I was so destroyed, I just followed him like a zombie. Justine wiped her tears with a napkin, her hands shaking. The next days were the worst of my life. Couldn't stop crying. Couldn't eat. Couldn't sleep. Every time closed my eyes, I saw Nevada's face. I kept going into his nursery and just sitting in the rocking chair, holding his blanket, smelling his baby smell that was still on everything. "And Elon?" Sarah asked, though she was afraid of the answer. "Elon went back to work the next day," Justine said, her voice hollow. "The very next day. Begged him to stay home. I said, 'Please, I need you. I can't do this alone.' He looked at me with these empty eyes and said, 'Justine, I'm sad about Nevada too, but sitting around crying won't bring him back. Have responsibilities. The company needs me.'" Sarah felt anger rising in her chest. He said that. Word for word, I'll never forget it. Then he said something worse. He said, "We can't wallow in this. We need to move forward. We can have another baby. But SpaceX only gets one chance. If I don't focus now, everything I've worked for dies too." Justine laughed bitterly. He compared our dead son to a business failure. He said we could just make another baby, like Nevada was a failed product we could iterate on. That's when I realized I'd married someone who didn't process emotions like normal people. Something in him was broken, or missing, or wired completely differently. "What did you do?" Sarah asked. "Called my sister in Canada. Told her everything. She flew down immediately and stayed with me for 2 weeks. She was the one who held me while I cried. She was the one who made me eat. She was the one who sat with me at Nevada's funeral, which Elon almost didn't attend because of a meeting. He came, but he left right after. Didn't even stay for the reception." Justine's voice grew harder now, angry. "My sister told me to leave him. She said, 'Justine, this man is not capable of being a husband or father. Get out now while you still know who you are,' but I didn't listen. I thought I could tough it out. I thought maybe this was just how he handled Griefa, by working. I made excuses for him." She looked directly at Sarah. "Do you know what the worst part is? Elon never talked about Nevada again. Not once. After the funeral, he never said our son's name. When people asked about children, he'd say not yet like Nevada never existed. He erased him. He treated our baby's death like a failed rocket tester, analyze what went wrong, implement corrections, move on." "Did you ever talk about it together? Process the grief?" Sarah asked. "Tried. God, I tried so many times. Say, 'Can we please talk about Nevada?' And he'd say, 'What's there to talk about? He's gone. Talking won't change that.' Or he'd say, 'I don't have the emotional bandwidth for this right now,' emotional bandwidth. Like grief was an app taking up too much memory on his phone." Justine leaned forward, her eyes intense. "Here's what I learned that year. You can be married and be completely alone. You can share a bed with someone and be on different planets. You can lose a child and discover you're grieving 2 losses, the baby and the husband you thought you had but never really existed." "Why did you stay?" Sarah asked gently. Justine was quiet for a long moment. "Fear, mostly. I was depressed, grieving, and I'd given up my writing career. I had no income of my own. My confidence was shattered, and part of me still believed I could fix things, fix him, fix us. That's what the nightmare is, Sarah. Not a single terrible moment, but years of slowly realizing you're trying to get water from a stone. Years of hoping someone will become capable of love when they are simply not built that way." She finished her coffee, now completely cold. "And the worst part, we were only 3 years into our marriage. I had 5 more years of nightmare ahead of me, and I didn't even know it yet. Nevada's death was just the beginning of learning what it meant to be married to Elon Musk." Sarah turned off her recorder for a moment. "Do you need a break?" Justine shook her head. "No, I need to finish, because the story gets worse, so much worse." Sarah turned the recorder back on. Justine ordered another coffee, this one with cream and sugar, like she needed the sweetness to get through what came next. "After Nevada died, I fell into a deep depression. Clinical depression, diagnosed by a psychiatrist. I was on medication, going to therapy twice a week, but Elon didn't believe in therapy. He thought it was self-indulgent, a waste of time. He told me I should just exercise more and think positive thoughts." Justine stirred her coffee slowly, watching the cream swirl into patterns. 2003 was a blur. I barely left the house. I sit in Nevada's nursery for hours, just staring at nothing. The nannies Elon had hired didn't know what to do with me. Wasn't taking care of anything because there was nothing to take care of anymore. Elon was gone 18, 20 hours a day. SpaceX was consuming him completely. Did he notice you were struggling? Sarah asked. Oh, he noticed. He just didn't care in the way I needed him to care. One night, think it was October 2003, he came home around midnight. I was sitting in the dark living room, hadn't showered in 3 days, wearing the same pajamas I'd had on for a week. He turned on the light, looked at me, and sighed. Actually sighed, like it was a problem he had to solve. Justine's jaw tightened at the memory. He sat down across from me and said, "This isn't working. You're not working." Thought maybe he was going to suggest couples therapy or ask me what I needed. Instead, he pulled out his wallet and handed me a gold American Express card, a corporate card from one of his companies. Sarah leaned forward. What did he say? He said, "Use this for whatever you need. Clothes, spa treatments, shopping, whatever makes women happy. Just buy things and stop being so sad all the time. It's affecting the household efficiency." Justine's voice dripped with bitterness. Household efficiency. Those were his exact words. Like our home was a factory and I was a broken machine lowering productivity. What did you do? I laughed. Actually laughed, this horrible, broken sound. Then I threw the card at him and said, "You think you can buy me out of grief? You think a gold card replaces being a husband?" And he looked at me like I was being completely unreasonable. He said, "I'm trying to help. I'm giving you resources. What else do you want from me?" Justine shook her head slowly. That's when I realized he genuinely didn't understand. It wasn't cruelty exactly. He just couldn't comprehend emotional needs. To him, problems had logical solutions. Sad wife? Give her money to buy happiness. It made sense in his brain. The fact that I needed him to hold me, to talk to me, to be presenter, those weren't solutions he could compute. Did you take the card? Sarah asked. Eventually, yes. Picked it up off the floor a few days later, because what choice did I have? Had no income. I'd abandoned my writing completely. I was financially dependent on a man who saw me as a malfunctioning appliance. Justine's voice dropped. That card became a symbol of everything wrong with our marriage. Every time I used it, I felt like I was being paid to stay quiet and invisible. She pulled out her phone again and showed Sarah another photo. This one was from 2004 at some tech industry party. Justine stood next to Elon, wearing an expensive dress, hair and makeup perfect. But her smile didn't reach her eyes. She looked like a beautiful mannequin. See that photo? That's what money bought. A wife who looked the part, but inside I was a ghost. I was disappearing, piece by piece, and nobody noticed because I looked fine on the outside. When did things change? Sarah asked. When I got pregnant again. My therapist suggested it might help with the depression, give me purpose again. And honestly, I was terrified of being alone with my thoughts. So Elon and I did IVF. He approached it like a science experiment. Literally tracked the dates in a spreadsheet, optimized the timing, discussed it with doctors like we were planning a rocket launch. Justine's voice softened slightly. In April 2004, I found out I was pregnant with twins, 2 babies. I was excited and terrified. Excited because maybe this time would be different. Terrified because what if something went wrong again? What if I lost them too? How did Elon react to the pregnancy? He said, and I quote, "Good, twins are efficient. 2 children from 1 pregnancy cycle, efficient." That was his response to finding out he was going to be a father again. Sarah couldn't hide her shock. He said that. He's an engineer, Sarah. Everything is about optimization. Emotions are inefficient. Love is inefficient. Actually being present for your family is inefficient. The only thing that mattered was output, rockets, cars, children, whatever. Just maximize production and minimize wasted time. Justine's hands trembled as she continued. The pregnancy was difficult. I was sick constantly, gained a lot of weight, felt exhausted all the time. Elon hired a team of people to help her: personal chef, nutritionist, trainer, more household staff. He threw money at the problem, but he didn't come home more. He didn't rub my feet or ask how I was feeling. He'd send text messages. How are the babies, not how are you, the babies, the product, the output. Did you tell him you needed more from him? Every single day, Justine said firmly. People think I was passive, that I just accepted this treatment. But I fought, Sarah. I begged, I cried, I screamed, I wrote him long emails explaining what I needed. And every time he'd say the same things: after this funding round, after this product launch, after we go public, after we land this contract. There was always an after that never came. She took a long drink of coffee. Griffin and Xaviera, those are our twinsa, were born in April 2004. Beautiful, healthy boys. I was so grateful, so relieved. Elon came to the hospital, stayed for maybe an hour, took some photos, then left. He had a meeting he couldn't miss. Our sons were 2 hours old, and he had a meeting he couldn't miss. Did that surprise you by then? No, Justine admitted. By then, I'd learned not to expect anything. I'd learned to lower my expectations so far that couldn't be disappointed anymore. That's what the nightmare does to you are. It trains you to need nothing, expect nothing, be nothing. She showed Sarah another photo. Justine in a hospital bed, holding 2 tiny newborns, smiling at the camera. But Sarah noticed Justine was looking at the babies, not at whoever was taking the photo. There was no sign of Elon. My sister took that picture, Justine said quietly. She flew down again to help with the twins. Elon hired 3 full-time nannies, but I needed family. I needed someone who actually cared about me as a person, not as an employee. What was life like with infant twins? Chaotic and lonely, Justine said. The house was always full of peoplia, nannies, cleaners, people delivering thingsa, but I felt completely isolated. Elon was barely there. When he was home, he'd be on his laptop or phone, working. The twins would cry and he'd put on noise-canceling headphones. Literally. He bought expensive headphones so he could work without hearing his own children cry. Sarah felt her anger rising again. Did you confront him about that? I stopped confronting him about specific things because it never changed anything. Instead, I started documenting everything in a journal. Times he promised to be home and didn't show up. Times he chose work over family. Times he made me feel invisible. Filled 3 notebooks in 2 years. Justine's voice grew distant, like she was seeing scenes from the past. Our house in Bel Air was enormous, 7 bedrooms, a pool, tennis court, everything money could buy. But it felt like a mausoleum. I'd walk through rooms that Elon used as secondary offices, past equipment and papers and prototypes, and I'd think, this is supposed to be our home, but it's really just an extension of his workspace. There was no boundary between his professional life and our personal life because he didn't believe in boundaries. Everything was work. Everything was the mission. Did you have any life outside of being his wife? No, Justine said bluntly. That's what I lost. I stopped writing entirely, couldn't focus, couldn't find the creative energy. Had no friends because we'd moved to California and I'd never built a social life here. Every conversation, every dinner party, every event was about Elon's companies. I was just the attractive accessory who smiled and nodded and asked the right questions to make investors feel comfortable. She leaned back, exhausted from the memories. By late 2004, I knew something was deeply wrong, not just with the marriage, but with me. I look in the mirror and not recognize myself. I'd gained weight from the pregnancy and depression. Had no identity beyond Elon's wife and the twins' mother. Justine Wilson, the writer who dreamed of publishing fantasy novels, was gone. Dead. More dead than Nevada, because at least Nevada had existed. The woman I'd been had simply evaporated. Did Elon notice the change in you? Justine's laugh was cold. He noticed I'd gained weight. He mentioned it several times, suggested I work with his personal trainer. But did he notice I was disappearing as a person? No, because to notice that, he would have had to see me as a person in the first place. And I don't think he ever did. Justine ordered a third coffee. The barista behind the counter gave her a concerned look, but said nothing. The afternoon light was fading outside, casting long shadows across the small coffee shop. 2006 was the year I became a mother of 5 children, Justine said, her voice carrying a mix of pride and exhaustion even now, 18 years later. Through IVF again, I had triplets. Kai, Saxon, and Damien, 3 more boys. Sarah's eyes widened. So you had 5 children under the age of 3. Under the age of 2, actually, Justine corrected. The twins were barely 2 years old when the triplets were born in January 2006. People thought I was crazy. Maybe I was, but I think part of me believed that more children would finally make Elon care about family, that he couldn't ignore 5 children the way he'd ignored 1 or 2. And did it work? Justine's expression answered before her words did. What do you think? He hired more nannies. We went from 3 to 7 staff members working in rotating shifts. Our home became like a daycare center run by strangers while the actual father lived at the Tesla factory. She pulled out another photo. This one showed her on a couch, literally covered in babies. 3 infant car seats on the floor beside her, 2 toddlers climbing over her lap. She looked overwhelmed but was trying to smile. That was my life. I was drowning in diapers and bottles and crying babies, and I was doing it essentially alone. Yes, I had help, paid help. But Elon was supposed to be my partner, and he was completely absent. By 2006, Tesla was consuming every minute of his life. Tell me about Tesla, Sarah prompted. Tesla Motors, Justine said the name like it tasted bitter. The electric car company that Elon didn't even found, but took over as chairman and then CEO. That company became his obsession. He was convinced gas-powered cars were destroying the planet, and he was the only one who could save humanity with electric vehicles. She paused, choosing her words carefully. And maybe he was right. Maybe Tesla did need to exist. Maybe electric cars are important for the future. But did they need to cost me my marriage? Did they need to cost my children their father? That's the question nobody asks when they praise Elon Musk the visionary. What did his vision cost the people closest to him? Where was he spending his time? The Tesla factory in San Carlos, California, he basically lived there. He had a couch in his office where he'd sleep 2-3 hours a night. He'd shower in the executive bathroom. He'd eat meals at his desk. The company was hemorrhaging money, struggling to produce their first car, the Roadster. Investors were getting nervous. Every day was a crisis. Justine's voice grew quieter, more hurt. I understood the pressure. I really did, but I had 5 babies at home. 5. I was up every night with crying infants. I was coordinating with multiple nannies, managing a household, dealing with my own postpartum depression after the triplets. And when I'd call Elon, desperate for help or just to hear an adult voice that cared about me, he'd say, "I can't talk right now. Tesla will die if I'm not here." Did you ever go to the factory? Once, Justine said, and something in her voice made Sarah sit up straighter. This is the memory that still haunts me. It was maybe 6 months after the triplets were born. Summer 2006. I was exhausted, depressed, feeling invisible. Called Elon and begged him to spend one evening with me. Just dinner, just us, no kids, no work talk, just be married for 2 hours. She stopped, her jaw working as she controlled her emotions. He said he couldn't leave the factory, but I should come there instead. He said, "Come see what I'm building. It's important," so I got dressed yupa, actually tried to look pretty for the first time in months. I arranged for extra babysitting coverage. I drove to San Carlos, which took nearly an hour in traffic. I walked into that factory actually excited, thinking maybe he wanted to share his world with me. Maybe he was finally including me. "What happened?" Sarah asked, though she suspected the answer would be painful. "He forgot I was there," Justine said flatly. I walked in, found him on the factory floor with engineers, and he waved at me, just a quick wavia, then went right back to his discussion about battery placement or motor efficiency or something. I stood there waiting for him to finish. 5 minutes became 10. 10 became 30, an hour passed. She shook her head, still disbelieving after all these years. I was standing in a corner of the factory, wearing a nice dress and heels, watching my husband in his element. And Sarah, he was transformed around those cars. Animated, passionate, engaged in a way he never was at home. He laughed with the engineers. He got excited about solving problems. He was fully present and alive. "That must have been devastating to see," Sarah said softly. "It was like watching someone fall in love right in front of you, except they were falling in love with machines instead of you." After 3 hours, he finally remembered I was there. He came over, distracted, and said, "What did you think? Isn't it incredible?" Like I'd been on a tour he'd arranged, instead of standing alone, being ignored for half the evening. Justine's voice cracked. I said, "I came here to spend time with you, to feel like your wife for one night," and he looked at me like I was speaking a foreign language. He said, "But I'm showing you my life's work. This is me spending time with you." He genuinely believed that letting me watch him work was the same as being together. "What did you say?" "Nothing. I was too tired to fight anymore." I drove home, cried the whole way, and when I got there, the triplets were screaming and one of the twins had a fever. I spent the night taking care of sick children while Elon slept on his couch at the factory, probably dreaming about battery chemistry. Justine wiped her eyes with a napkin from the dispenser on the table. That night at the factory broke something in me. I realized I was competing with something could never beat. Couldn't be as exciting as a new technology. Couldn't give him the rush that solving an engineering problem gave him. It was human, messy, needy, emotional, all the things Elon found inefficient and annoying. "Did you think about leaving then?" "Every day," Justine admitted, "but I was trapped. I had 5 small children. I hadn't worked in 6 years. I had no career to return to. My writing dreams were dead. I was completely financially dependent on Elon, and the scariest part, I'd been Mrs. Elon Musk for so long that I didn't know how to be anything else." She looked directly at Sarah with fierce intensity. "People judge women who stay in bad marriages. They say, 'Why didn't you just leave?' But they don't understand how you get there. It's not one big terrible thing. It's 1,000 tiny moments where you compromise yourself, where you make yourself smaller, where you accept a little less love, a little less attention, a little less respect. And then one day you wake up and you're 40 pounds heavier, on 3 different medications, raising 5 children alone while still married, and you can't remember the last time your husband looked at you like you mattered." She finished her coffee in one long swallow. That factory visit was in 2006. I stayed in that marriage for 2 more years, 2 more years of being a ghost in my own life. And it got worse, Sarah, so much worse. Because at least then, I still had hope things might change. What came next killed even that. Sarah checked her recorder, making sure it was still running. What happened next? Justine's face hardened. I found out what Elon really thought of me, and it destroyed what little was left of my heart. Justine stared out the coffee shop window for a long moment, watching cars pass on Sunset Boulevard. When she turned back to Sarah, her eyes were hard with old anger. It was spring 2007. The twins were 3, the triplets were 1 year old. I was drowning, not figuratively, literally drowning in my own life. I'd stopped showering regularly. I'd eat whatever the kids left on their plates because I couldn't find time to make myself a meal. I was on antidepressants, but they weren't working. I'd gained more weight. I felt ugly, useless, invisible. She took a shaky breath. One afternoon, I needed to check something for the twins' preschool enrollment. Elon had all the family documents on his laptop because he organized everything in folders and spreadsheets. Even our family life was a database to him. He was at the factory, so I opened his computer. The password was the date SpaceX was incorporated, not our wedding anniversary. Not the kids' birthdays, his company. Sarah leaned forward, sensing they were approaching something crucial. The laptop was already open to his email, and right there on the screen was a message he'd sent to someone. I saw my name in the preview, so clicked it. I shouldn't have, I know, but something made me look. Justine's hands clenched into fists on the table. It was an email to a therapist. Elon had been seeing a therapista, which shocked me because he'd always said therapy was worthless. But apparently, he went to therapy about work stress, not about us. Never about us. And in this email, he was responding to something the therapist had asked about his marriage. "What did it say?" Sarah asked gently. Justine's voice went flat, reciting words she'd clearly memorized. "My wife has become an obligation. A task on my to-do list that I resent having to complete. I feel nothing when I come home. The house is chaos. She's gained significant weight, and she's always complaining about feeling alone or needing more support. I married an interesting writer with ambition. Now she's just a mother who's let herself go. I need a partner who challenges me intellectually, who drives me to be better. Instead, I have someone who drains my energy and contributes nothing to my mission." Sarah felt her stomach drop. "Oh, Justine." "There was more," Justine continued, her voice trembling now. "I've tried to solve the problem by providing Rizawasa, staff, money, everything she could need, but she refuses to help herself. She wallows. If she were an engineer on my team performing at this level, I would have terminated her employment years ago. I don't know why the same logic doesn't apply to marriage." A tear rolled down Justine's cheek, but her voice stayed steady. "He compared me to an underperforming employee he wanted to fire. I'd given birth to his children 5 times. I'd sacrificed my career, my identity, my entire life for him, and to him, I was just dead weight. A bad hire he regretted." "What did you do?" Sarah asked. I printed the email. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely press the buttons. Then I sat on the floor of his office and cried for an hour. Not quiet cryinga, ugly, gasping sobs. The nannies heard me but didn't know what to do. Eventually, I pulled myself together enough to function, got the kids dinner, put them to bed. Justine wiped her eyes roughly. Elon came home around 11 that night. I was waiting for him in the kitchen with the printed email on the counter. He walked in, saw my face, saw the paper, and I watched him understand what had happened. And you know what his first response was? Not "I'm sorry," not "let me explain." He said, "You went through my computer. That's a violation of privacy." Sarah's jaw dropped. "He was angry at you." Furious, he said I had no right to read his private correspondence with his therapist, that those thoughts were confidential and I'd stolen them. I screamed at Hema, actually screamed, which I'd never done before. I said, "These thoughts are about me? You think I'm an obligation you want to fire? You think I've let myself go? You think I contribute nothing?" Justine's voice rose with the memory, and other coffee shop patrons glanced over. She lowered it again, but the intensity remained. And instead of denying it, instead of saying he didn't mean it, he said the worst thing he could possibly say. He looked at me with these cold eyes and said, "I was being honest with my therapist. Would you prefer I lie? These are my authentic feelings." I thought you valued honesty. He didn't even apologize. No, he doubled down. He said, "Everything I wrote is factually accurate. You have gained weighter, that's measurable. You do complain frequently, Could show you data on our text message frequency and negative sentiment analysis. You did abandon your writing career, you haven't written in 6 years. These aren't opinions, they're observations." Justine shook her head in disbelief, even now. That's how Elon's brain works. He can take the most devastating emotional cruelty and frame it as objective data. He wasn't being mean, he was just stating facts. The fact that those facts destroyed his wife, that was my problem for being too emotional to handle truth. "How did the conversation end?" Sarah asked. "It became the biggest fight we'd ever had. Accused him of being heartless. He accused me of being unreasonable. I said, 'I've given up everything for you all, my career, my country, my identity.' He said, 'I never asked you to give up anything. You made those choices. Don't blame me for your decisions.'" Justine's voice broke. Then he said something I'll never forget. He said, "If you were my employee, I would have let you go years ago. Keeping underperformers is bad for company culture." Maybe the same is true for marriages. He actually said that. He compared our marriage to a company and me to an employee dragging down performance metrics. "That must have been the end," Sarah said. "I can't imagine how you could come back from that." It should have been the end, Justine agreed, but I was too broken to leave. Where would I go with 5 small children? How would I support them? I'd been out of the workforce for 7 years. I had no recent work experience. And the most pathetic part, some small, broken part of me still hoped I could fix things. That maybe if I lost weight, if I stopped complaining, if I became interesting again, he might love me. She laughed bitterly. So, tried. God help me, tried. I started working with a personal trainer. I dyed my hair. I bought new clothes. I forced myself to read tech magazines so I could talk about things he cared about. I became a performing seal, trying desperately to be worthy of love from someone incapable of giving it. Did anything change? He noticed I lost weight. That's it. He said, "You look better, more like yourself. Not I'm attracted to you again or I appreciate your effort. Just a clinical observation that I'd returned to acceptable physical parameters." And he still didn't come home more. Still didn't engage with the kids. Still treated me like a household appliance that was finally working properly again. Justine pulled out her phone and showed Sarah a photo from late 2007. She looked thinner, too thinner, with a forced smile at some tech industry gala. Elon stood beside her, not touching her, looking at someone off camera. That's me after I fixed myself according to his specifications. I'd lost 45 pounds in 4 months. I was barely eating, exercising 2 hours a day, taking care of 5 kids, and trying to be the perfect wife. I was exhausted and miserable, but hey, at least I didn't make Elon ashamed to be seen with me anymore. When did you realize it was hopeless? Sarah asked. New Year's Eve, going into 2008. We went to a party in Palo Alto, other tech CEOs and their wives. I'd prepared for weeks, got my hair done, bought an expensive dress, practiced interesting things to say. Was determined to be the fascinating partner Elon wanted. Justine's smile was sad. At the party, Elon spent 4 hours talking to other people while I stood nearby, smiling like a good wife should. Around 11, a woman approached me. Think she was married to someone from Google. She said, "You're Elon Musk's wife, right?" I said yes. And she said, "I've been watching you all night. He hasn't spoken to you once. Are you okay?" Her voice caught. A complete stranger noticed in 4 hours what had been true for 8 years. I wasn't okay. Hadn't been okay in so long I'd forgotten what okay felt like. Excused myself, went to the bathroom, and called my sister. I said, "I can't do this anymore. I'm dying inside," she said, then stopped dying. "Come back to life, even if it means leaving." Is that when you decided to divorce? Sarah asked. No, Justine said. I decided, but I didn't have to do anything. Because 6 months later, Elon made the decision for me. And the way he did it was so perfectly Elon, so perfectly cruel in its efficiency, that it almost didn't surprise me. She looked at Sarah with eyes that had seen too much. Picture this, you wake up one morning in your own home. You walk downstairs to make breakfast for your 5 children. And there, on the kitchen counter, are divorce papers with a yellow Post-it note. That's how my marriage ended, with a Post-it note. Justine's hands trembled as she pulled a folded piece of yellow paper from her purse. It was faded now, the adhesive long dried, but she'd kept it all these years. This is it, she said, placing it on the table between them. The Post-it note that ended my marriage. Sarah leaned forward to read the neat handwriting. Please sign, my lawyers will handle everything. A circumflex E. That's it, Sarah whispered. That's all he wrote. That's all, Justine confirmed. 8 years of marriage, 5 children together, 1 baby buried, and I got 14 words on a Post-it note. She took the paper back, folding it carefully and returning it to her purse like evidence she might need someday. It was June 2008, a Tuesday morning. I remember because the twins had swim class that afternoon and I was worried about getting everyone ready on time. Stupid, right? My marriage was ending and I was thinking about swim class. You were in shock, Sarah said. Complete shock. I stood in that kitchen for maybe 20 minutes just staring at the papers. The kids were still asleep upstairs. The house was quiet. And I kept thinking, this can't be real. This has to be a mistake. actually looked around for Elon, thinking maybe he was somewhere in the house that we could talk about this. Justine's voice grew hollow. But he wasn't there. He'd left in the middle of the night while I was sleeping, packed a bag, took his laptop, and just left. He didn't have the decency to tell me to my face. Didn't have the courage to have an actual conversation about ending our marriage. He just left papers on the counter like he was leaving a note for the housekeeper. "Did you call him?" Sarah asked. "Immediately. Called his cell phone maybe 15 times. It went straight to voicemail. I called his assistanta. She said he was unavailable and would get back to me. Unavailable. Texted him. Emailed him. Nothing. He'd made his decision and didn't want to deal with my emotional response. So he just disappeared." Justine's jaw clenched. Finally, around noon, I got an email from his lawyer. Not from Alona, from his lawyer. It said Mr. Musk had retained legal counsel to handle the dissolution of our marriage. All communication should go through the law firm. They'd already filed the papers with the court. There was a proposed settlement agreement attached. I should review it with my own attorney and respond within 30 days. How much time had he spent planning this? Sarah asked. Months, apparently. Found out later he'd been meeting with divorce lawyers since March. 3 months of planning while I was still trying to save our marriage. While I was still sleeping next to him, every night he bothered to come home. He'd been strategizing our divorce like it was a business merger, while I was making him breakfast and raising his children. Justine's voice rose with anger she'd clearly held for 16 years. And the settlement terms? They were calculated down to the penny. He'd valued our 8 years together like a financial transaction. X amount for each year married. Y amount per child for support. Z amount for me to maintain reasonable lifestyle, but not enough to be truly independent. Everything optimized to minimize his loss, while keeping me from making trouble. What did you do? I called my sister in Canada. Again, she flew down that same day. Thank God for Hira. Don't know what I would have done without family. When she arrived, I was still in my pajamas, hadn't fed the kids lunch, was just sitting on the floor surrounded by legal papers I couldn't understand through my tears. Justine wiped her eyes. My sister read through everything while I took care of the children. That evening, after we got the kids to bed, she sat me down and said, "Justine, these terms are terrible. He's trying to control you financially forever. You need a good lawyer. You need to fight this." But I was so tired, Sarah, so completely exhausted. I didn't want a fight. I just wanted it to be over. Did you sign? Not that day. My sister wouldn't let me. She found me a lawyer, a tough woman in Los Angeles who specialized in high net worth divorces. I met with her that week. She took one look at Elon's proposed settlement and laughed. She said, "He thinks you're going to roll over. We are going to show him different." Justine smiled slightly at the memory. For about 2 weeks, I had energy to fight. My lawyer filed counter-proposals. We demanded more support, better custody terms, protection for my rights. Elon's lawyers pushed back hard. Every communication was cold, legal, designed to intimidate. They painted me as an unstable, depressed housewife who'd contributed nothing to Elon's success. They had doctor's notes about my mental health. They had records of every therapy session I'd ever attended. They used your depression against you? Sarah was horrified. Of course they did. In California, everything's fair game in a divorce. They argued I was unfit to have primary custody because I was on medication. They said the children would be better off with Elon's stable carrier, meaning nannies he'd hire and control. They made it sound like I was a danger to my own children. Justine's voice shook with rage. The man who'd been absent their entire lives, who didn't know what they ate for breakfast or what books they liked or who their friends were, was arguing he should have them more because he had money and I had depression. Depression he'd caused by abandoning me emotionally for 8 years. That must have been terrifying, Sarah said. It was a nightmare. I'd wake up in the middle of the night panicking that I'd lose my children. They were all I had left. My identity, my purpose, the only good thing that had come from that marriage. And Elon's lawyers were threatening to take them. She took a shaky breath. But then something happened. I was going through Elon's old office, packing his things that he'd left behind when he moved out, and I found a filing cabinet he'd forgotten about. Inside were folders, old business documents, tax records, random papers, and buried in the back was a folder labeled personal. Sarah's pulse quickened. The folder you mentioned on the phone. Yes, but I didn't look at it carefully then. I was too overwhelmed with the divorce proceedings. I just saw some medical documents, some old emails, personal notes. I almost threw it away, but something made me keep it. I locked it in my own safe and forgot about it while I dealt with lawyers and custody evaluations and the hell of divorcing Elon Musk. What was in the folder? Sarah asked. We'll get to that, Justine said, because what happened next matters for understanding why kept that folder secret for so long. Why I protected Elon even after everything he'd done to me. She finished her coffee, now her fourth of the afternoon. The custody battle went on for months. It was brutal. Private investigators following me, documenting everywhere I went. Psychological evaluations where I had to prove I was a fit mother. Court dates where lawyers argued about every detail of my life. And through it all, Elon never once called me. Never once asked how the kids were handling the divorce. Everything went through lawyers. How did the children react? They were confused and heartbroken. The twins were 4, old enough to understand Daddy wasn't living with us anymore, but too young to understand why. The triplets were 2, just babies. They'd cry for their father, and I'd have to explain that Daddy was working, Daddy was busy, Daddy would see them soon. Except soon kept getting postponed because Elon was too busy with Tesla and SpaceX. Justine's eyes filled with tears. Griffina, one of the twinsa, asked me one night, did we do something bad? Is that why Daddy left and had to hold this 4-year-old child and explain that no, he was perfect, Daddy still loved him, this wasn't his fault. While inside, I was screaming because it was Elon's fault. All of it. And he wasn't there to see the damage he was causing. How did the custody arrangement end up? We settled out of court finally in late 2008. Joint custody, with the kids primarily living with me. Elon got them every other weekend and certain holidays, though he canceled probably half the time for business reasons. I got enough money to maintain the house and support the kids, but I had to sign strict confidentiality agreements. Confidentiality about what? Everything. The marriage, the divorce, the settlement terms, anything that might damage Elon's public image. His lawyers made it clearer, if I talked publicly about him in a negative way, I'd lose my support payments and face legal consequences. They'd sue me into the ground. Justine looked directly at Sarah. So I stayed silent. For 16 years, I stayed silent, even when I wanted to scream the truth. Even when people praised Elon as a visionary, and I knew the cost of that vision. I stayed silent because had 5 children to protect and no way to support them without his money. What changed? Sarah asked. Why talk now? Because the confidentiality agreement had a time limit. And because I finally realized silence was protecting him, not me. It was time to tell the truth. Justine ordered water this time. Her hands wrapped around the cold glass like she needed something to anchor her to the present moment. The divorce was finalized in September 2008. The economy was collapsing. Lehman Brothers had just failed. The stock market was crashing. Everything was chaos. Tesla was nearly bankrupt. SpaceX had failed 3 rocket launches in a row. Elon was under incredible stress. She paused, her expression complicated. And actually felt sorry for him. Isn't that twisted? After everything, I was worried about him. I called to check if he was okay. He didn't answer. He never answered my calls anymore unless they were about logistics for the kids. How were you doing? Sarah asked. Terrible. I was a single mother of 5 children under age 5. I was still on antidepressants. I was living in a house that felt too big and too empty. Every room reminded me of my failure as a wife, failure as a woman, failure as a person. At least, that's what I believed then. Justine's voice grew stronger. But I was also relieved. For the first time in 8 years, I didn't have to wait for Elon to come home. I didn't have to feel disappointed when he chose work over family. I didn't have to perform being the perfect wife. Could just be a mother and slowly figure out who Justine Wilson was supposed to be. And then, Sarah prompted, sensing there was more. And then, 6 weeks after our divorce was finalized, I saw photos online. Elon at a party in Los Angeles with a beautiful young woman. Her name was Tallulah Rilya, a British actress, blonde, gorgeous, 10 years younger than me. They were laughing together, and he had his arm around her waist. Justine's jaw tightened. 6 weeks. Our divorce had been final for 6 weeks, and he was already publicly with someone new, which meant he'd been seeing her before that, maybe during our divorce, maybe even before he left the papers on the kitchen counter. How did that make you feel? Sarah asked. Like it'd been replaced by a newer model, Justine said bluntly. Like I was an outdated product he'd traded in for an upgrade. Tallulah was everything I wasn't anymore, young, thin, glamorous, carefree. She didn't have stretch marks from 5 pregnancies. She didn't have dark circles under her eyes from sleepless nights with babies. She was fresh and exciting and new. She pulled out her phone and showed Sarah a tabloid photo from late 2008, Elon and Tallulah at some tech industry gala. He looked happier, genuinely happy in a way Justine had rarely seen during their marriage. See his face? That's what happiness looks like on Elon Musk. I saw that expression maybe 5 times in 8 years of marriage, and it was always related to a successful rocket test or product launch. Never about me, never about our children. But there he was, smiling like that for Tallulah Riley after knowing her for what, a few months. That must have been crushing, Sarah said. It was, Justine admitted. But it also clarified something. The problem wasn't that I wasn't good enough. The problem was that Elon falls in love with newness, with excitement, with the chase. Once he has something, whether it's a wife or a solved engineering problem, it stops being interesting to him. He needs constant novelty. She took a long drink of water. Over the next year, I watched from a distance as their relationship played out in the media. Elon Musk, genius entrepreneur with his beautiful actress girlfriend. They went to parties, premieres, fancy dinners. She'd post photos on social media of them traveling together. He seemed like a completely different persona, present, attentive, romantic even. How did the children react? They were too young to really understand. The twins would see pictures and ask, "Who's that lady with Daddy?" I'd say, "That's Daddy's friend." What else could I say? "That's the woman Daddy chose over Mommy." Justine's voice carried old pain. Elon married Tallulah in 2010, 2 years after our divorce. It was a private ceremony, but the press covered it extensively. I found out from a news alert on my phone. He didn't tell me himself, didn't give me a heads up so I could prepare the kids. We just woke up one day and the children's father was married to someone else. Did you meet her? Once, briefly, when she came to pick up the kids for a weekend with Elon. She was polite, a bit awkward. I think she felt uncomfortable around me. I didn't blame Hira, was the ex-wife, the one who came before, the one who had his children. I represented everything that hadn't worked. Justine smiled sadly. Actually wanted to warn her. Wanted to pull her aside and say, he seems different now, but wait until you're not new anymore. Wait until you need something from him emotionally. Wait until his companies demand his attention and you're competing with Tesla and SpaceX. But I didn't. That wouldn't have been fair. What was your life like during this time? I was rebuilding myself piece by piece. I started writing again, not the fantasy novels I dreamed of, but essays about divorce, motherhood, identity. I wrote an article for a magazine about being married to an entrepreneur. It was honest but not cruel. Followed my confidentiality agreement carefully. She looked at Sarah intently. People responded to that article, women especially. They'd email me saying, "I'm married to someone like that," or "I lost myself too," or "Thank you for making me feel less alone." Realized my experience wasn't uniquea. It was just amplified by Elon's fame and wealth. There are millions of women disappearing in marriages to ambitious men. Did Elon react to the article? His lawyers sent a letter reminding me of the confidentiality terms and warning me not to violate them. That was it. Not "I read what you wrote" or "I'm sorry things were hard," just a legal threat. Justine's voice grew bitter. Meanwhile, he was building his public image as this visionary saving humanity. Magazine covers, TED Talks, interviews where he talked about making life multiplanetary and solving climate change. Everyone worshipped him. And I'd watch and think, this man couldn't save his own marriage. He can't maintain relationships with his own children. But sure, let's trust him to save humanity. That must have been frustrating. Frustrating doesn't cover it. Was watching the world fall in love with a myth while I knew the reality, but I couldn't say anything. I was legally gagged, financially dependent, and terrified of losing my children if I violated the agreement. So I smiled and nodded when people asked about Elon. I said we had an amicable divorce and wished him well. Played the role of the gracious ex-wife. She leaned forward, but I was keeping track. I saved articles, interviews, tweets. I documented every time he canceled on the kids, every promise he broke, every way he failed as a father. I didn't know why I was doing it then. Maybe for the kids when they got older. Maybe for myself to validate that my memories were real. Or maybe I knew that someday the truth would need to be told. And Elon's marriage to Tallulah? Sarah asked. Justine's smile was knowing. They divorced in 2012, after 2 years of marriage, just like I'd predicted, because the pattern doesn't change her, only the women do. The sun had set completely now, and the coffee shop was emptier. Only a few customers remained, hunched over laptops or reading books. Justine seemed grateful for the privacy as she prepared to share what came next. When Elon and Tallulah divorced in 2012, I felt vindicated. Not happier, don't take pleasure in anyone's pain, but validated. It confirmed what I'd known. The problem wasn't me. The problem was Elon's inability to sustain intimate relationships. She twisted the silver ring on her finger, but then something happened that shocked me. In 2013, Elon remarried Tallulah, the same woman. They got divorced and then got married again 16 months later. I couldn't understand it. Why would she go back? Did you ever find out? Sarah asked. Years later, I heard through mutual acquaintances that Tallulah felt guilty, that Elon had convinced her he'd changed, that he needed her, that the divorce had been a mistake. He can be very persuasive when he wants something, and I think she genuinely cared about him. But caring about Elon Musk is like caring about a beautiful, dangerous machine. Eventually, it will hurt you. Justine's expression darkened. But I couldn't focus on Elon's love life because in 2010, something terrible started happening. He began fighting me for more custody of the children. And not because he suddenly wanted to be a hands-on father, because he wanted control. What do you mean? Sarah leaned forward. The twins were 6, the triplets were 4. They were in school, developing personalities, becoming real people. And Elon decided he wanted them more timia, not to spend with them, but to have them in his possession, to shape them according to his vision. He called it optimizing their development. Justine's voice filled with old fear. His lawyers filed motions to modify the custody agreement. They argued that now that the children were older, they needed more access to their father's superior resources and educational opportunities. Translation: Elon had money and could provide things I couldn't, so he deserved the kids more. What kind of things? Sarah asked. Everything. Private tutors, language immersion programs, coding classes, science camps. He wanted to turn them into little geniuses like him. And maybe that sounds good on paper, but it wasn't about the children's happiness. It was about his ego, his need to create offspring who reflected his brilliance. She pulled out another document from her Percy, heavily redacted court papers. This custody battle went on for 2 years. 2 years of lawyers, court appearances, psychological evaluations, home visits. It was hell, Sarah, absolute hell. And the worst part was that Elon was rarely involved directly. He'd send lawyers and experts to fight his battles while he was at SpaceX or Tesla. He didn't even show up to half the court dates. What were they arguing? That I was limiting the children's potential. That my modest lifestyle, their wordsa, wasn't adequate compared to what Elon could provide. They brought in educational consultants who testified that the children would benefit from more structured, achievement-oriented environments. They made me sound like I was holding the kids back by letting them be normal children. Justine's hands trembled with anger. They investigated everything. My finances, my mental health history, my dating Lifia, which was non-existent because I was too busy raising 5 kids alone. They interviewed the children's teachers, their doctors, even our neighbors. They were looking for anything to prove I was an unfit mother. That's terrifying, Sarah said. It was worse than terrifying. It was violating. They dug up my medical records from after Nevada died. They questioned my antidepressant use. They suggested that my emotional instability made me unpredictable. Never mind that Elon had caused that instability by abandoning me. Never mind that I'd been a devoted mother for 10 years. They wanted to paint me as damaged goods. She took a shaky breath. And the children were caught in the middle. Court-appointed psychologists interviewed them, asking questions like where do you feel safer, mommy's house or daddy's house, and who takes better care of you. Can you imagine putting that on young children? Making them feel like they had to choose. How did the kids handle it? Sarah asked gently. Not well. Griffin, one of the twins, started having nightmares. He'd wake up crying, asking if we were going to have to go live with Daddy full-time. Xaviera, who later became Viviana, got quiet, withdrawn. The triplets were too young to fully understand, but they sensed the tension. Children always know when something's wrong. Justine wiped her eyes. Had one advantage, though, the truth. When the court evaluator asked the children about their father, they were honest. They said Daddy was busy, that he canceled visits a lot, that when they were with him, the nannies took care of them most of the time, that he worked on his computer even during their scheduled time together. The kids said that, out of their own mouths. The court evaluator's report stated that while Mr. Musk provided excellent material support, his actual engagement with the children was limited and inconsistent, that his home environment was staff-managed rather than parent-managed, that the children had a stronger emotional bond with their mother. Justine smiled sadly. Elon was furious when he read that report. His lawyers tried to discredit it, arguing that the evaluator was biased. But it was hard to argue with the children's own words. They loved their father, but they needed their mother. They lived with me. I was the one who knew them. So what happened? We went to mediation in 2012. By then, Elon had divorced and remarried Tallulah, Tesla was finally starting to succeed, and SpaceX had completed successful missions to the International Space Station. He was becoming seriously famous. And I think his lawyers advised him that a public custody battle would be bad for his image. Justine pulled out another photo on her phone, the 5 children from 2012, ages 8 and 6, at a beach somewhere. Look at these faces. These are the children we were fighting over. Beautiful, innocent kids who just wanted both parents to love them without lawyers and courts and evaluations. They didn't ask to be born to Elon Musk. They didn't ask for any of this. What were the final terms? Sarah asked. Joint custody remained, but with specific detailed schedules that Elon actually had to follow or notify me in advance if he couldn't. The children would continue living primarily with me during the school year. He'd get summers and holidays with the understanding that he had to actually be present, not just have staff supervising. And there were educational decisions we had to make together. Justine's voice hardened. But here's the thing, even after all that legal fighting, even after spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on lawyers and experts, Elon's behavior didn't change. He still canceled visits. He still prioritized work. The custody agreement was just paper. It couldn't make him be the father those children needed. How did you explain it to the kids? I told them that Daddy loved them very much but had important work to do. That sometimes grown-ups disagree about schedules, but it wasn't their fault. That they were loved and safe, and that was what mattered. I protected Elon's image to his own children because what was the alternative? Tell them their father fought for custody not because he wanted to spend time with them, but because he wanted to control them. She shook her head. The custody battle taught me something important. Elon doesn't love in the traditional sense. He possesses. He wants ownership of things he considers hisa, companies, ideas, technologies, children. But ownership isn't the same as relationship. You can own something and never really connect with it. Did the kids understand that? Not then, they were too young. But as they got older, they started to see the pattern. Broken promises, canceled weekends, birthday parties he missed, school events he was too busy to attend. You can only disappoint children so many times before they stop expecting anything from you. Justine's voice cracked. And that broke my heart more than anything Elon did to me. I could survive being emotionally abandoned. I was an adult. I chose to marry him. But those children, they didn't choose this. They deserved a father who showed up. And instead, they got Elon Musk, a man who could engineer rockets but couldn't figure out how to be present for his own kids. She looked at Sarah with fierce intensity. People worship Elon for his vision, his ambition, his genius. But nobody talks about the cost. Nobody talks about the children growing up with a phantom father. Nobody talks about the custody battles fought in private while he's being celebrated in public. Nobody talks about what it does to kids when they realize they'll never be as important to their father as his next company. Is that what motivated you to finally speak out? Sarah asked. Justine nodded slowly. Partly, but there's more. Because the real breaking point came later, when one of my children made a choice that forced me to confront everything I'd been protecting Elon from. When my child chose to walk away from their father completely. That's when I knew silence wasn't protecting anyone anymore. Justine ordered chamomile tea now, her hands wrapped around the warm cup. The coffee shop was nearly empty, just one other customer reading in the corner. The barista was starting to clean up for closing, but seemed to sense this conversation needed to continue. Before I tell you about my child's decision, I need to tell you about what happened with Elon between 2013 and 2016. Because it confirmed everything I'd learned about him, and it helped me understand that our failed marriage wasn't an anomaly. It was inevitable. She took a sip of tea. Elon remarried Talular in 2013. I remember thinking, maybe he's learned something. Maybe the second time will be different. Part of me wanted him to succeed because if he could be happy, maybe he'd be a better father to our children. Maybe he'd stop fighting me in court. Maybe he'd finally find peace. Did things change? Sarah asked. For about a year, he seemed different, more relaxed. He'd actually show up for his scheduled time with the kids. He'd send me polite emails instead of everything going through lawyers. I thought, okay, maybe Talular is good for him. Maybe she figured out something I couldn't. Justine's expression turned sad. But by late 2014, I started noticing the old patterns. Canceled visits because of Tesla production issues. Distracted phone calls with the kids where could hear him typing in the background. The twins, who were 10 by then, would come back from weekends with their dad and say things like, "We watched movies with the nanny while dad worked in his office." The same patterns as your marriage, Sarah observed. Exactly the same, and I realized it wasn't me. It wasn't Tallulah. It was Elon. He's incapable of sustaining intimate relationships once the novelty wears off. Marriage for him is exciting for maybe 18 months, the courtship, the wedding, the honeymoon phase, but then it becomes routine and routine bores him. He needs constant stimulation, constant challenge, constant newness. She showed Sarah her phone with a news article from 2016. December 2016, they divorced again. Final this time. Married in 2010, divorced in 2012, remarried in 2013, divorced again in 2016. Talulah Riley was married to Elon Musk for a total of about 4 years, spread across 2 marriages. If that doesn't tell you something about his capacity for commitment, I don't know what does. Did you reach out to her? Sarah asked. I sent her a brief email, just said I was sorry it didn't work out and that understood what she'd been through. She wrote back very graciously and said, "You tried to make it work for 8 years. I only managed 4 total. I don't know how you survived as long as you did." Justine smiled grimly. We didn't become friends or anything, but there was this unspoken understanding between us. We'd both loved the same impossible man. We'd both tried to be enough for someone who would never be satisfied. We'd both failed, not because we weren't good enough, but because the task was impossible from the start. How did the children react to their father's second divorce? The older twins were 12 by then, old enough to understand divorce. Xavier asked me, "Why can't Dad stay married to anyone?" And I didn't know what to say. How do you explain to a 12-year-old that their father is brilliant at building companies, but broken at building relationships? Justine's voice grew softer. Told them that sometimes people aren't compatible, that divorce doesn't mean anyone's bad, that their dad still loved them. All the things you're supposed to say. But Xavier looked at me with these wise, sad eyes and said, "He doesn't know how to love people, does he? Only things." And I realized my child, at 12 years old, had figured out what took me 8 years of marriage to understand. "That must have been difficult to hear," Sarah said. "It was heartbreaking, because I'd spent years trying to protect Elon's image to his children, making excuses for him, explaining away his absences, and they saw through it all anyway. Children aren't stupid. They know when a parent is present and when they're just going through the motions." She finished her tea. After the second divorce from Tallulah, I thought maybe Elon would focus on being a father. He was single again, Tesla was thriving, SpaceX was landing rockets on drone ships. He'd achieved so much professionally. Maybe now he'd have time for his children. Maybe now he'd realize that legacy isn't just about companionessa, it's about relationships, family, love. But that's not what happened, Sarah guessed. No, instead, he started dating again quickly. There was an actress briefly, then he met the musician Grimes in 2018. And then the pattern repeated, a new relationship, all-consuming obsession, and the children got pushed aside again. Justine pulled up another article on her phone, this one from 2020. In May 2020, Elon and Grimes had a son. They named him X-A-tilde-A-Z-I, pronounced X-Ash a 12, a name that was literally illegal in California until they modified it. When my twins heard about their new half-brother, Griffin said, "At least we have normal names." Even at 16, they recognized the absurdity. How did you feel about Elon having more children? Complicated, Justine admitted. Part of me was sad for my kidsa. They already barely saw their father, and now he had another baby to ignore. Part of me was worried for Grimes because I knew exactly what she was about to experience. And part of me was just tired of watching the same story play out over and over with different women. She leaned forward, and then found out he'd had twins with a Neuralink executive named Shiv Unzilis. Twins born in 2021, just weeks before his third child with Grimes. He was having children with 2 different women at almost the same time, neither of whom he was married to. By my count, he now had 10 living children with 3 different women. 10 children, Sarah repeated slowly. 10 children he barely knows, Justine corrected. Because here's the thing about Elon, he likes the idea of children. Legacy, genetics, populating Mars, or whatever. But he doesn't like the reality of children, the mess, the emotions, the time commitment, the need for actual presence. He treats procreation like a scientific experiment in maximizing his genetic output. Her voice grew hard. My 5 children, Grimes' 3 children, Shivon's 2 children, we are all raising Elon Musk's kids while he changes the world. We are the women doing the actual work of parenting while he gets credit for fatherhood. And people celebrate him for having lots of children, like he's some kind of visionary about population collapse. But who's changing diapers? Who's up at night with sick kids? Who's attending parent-teacher conferences? Not Elon Musk. Did watching this pattern repeat change how you felt about your own marriage? Sarah asked. Yes, Justine said firmly. It freed me from guilt. For years, I'd blamed myself. Thought if I'd been smarter, prettier, more interesting, more patient, things would have worked. But watching him repeat the exact same patterns with multiple women made me realize it was never about me. This is who Elon is, and it's not going to change. The barrister approached their table apologetically. "We are closing in 30 minutes, she said softly. "We'll be done soon," Justine promised. She looked at Sarah. "This next part is the hardest, because it's not just my story anymore, it's my children's story. And they've lived with the consequences of having Elon Musk as a father in ways I can only witness, not truly understand." Sarah nodded, checking her recorder once more. "Take your time." Between 2013 and 2018, my children grew from young kids into teenagers. And I watched them go through stages of understanding who their father really was. It was like watching them grieve someone who was still alive. Justine's eyes grew distant. When they were littler, 5, 6, Savina, they'd get excited before visits with their dad. They'd pack special things to show him, draw pictures for him, plan stories to tell him. And then he'd cancel, or he'd be distracted the whole time, or he'd cut the visit short for a business emergency. And I'd see their little faces fall, but they'd bounce back quickly. Kids are resilient at that age. "When did that change?" Sarah asked. Around age 10 or 11, they stopped getting excited. They'd pack their bags without enthusiasm. They'd come back from weekends and I'd ask, "How was Daddy's house?" And they'd shrug and say, "Fine, we played video games. Not Dad and I did this or Dad taught me that. Just we played video gamesa," meaning they entertained themselves while he worked. Justine pulled out her phone and scrolled through old photos. "Look at this. Griffin's middle school science fair, 2015. He built a model rocketta, of course he did, trying to impress his father. He worked on it for 2 months. Elon promised to come. Griffin was so excited, told everyone at school his dad built real rockets and was coming to see his project." She showed Sarah a photo of a young boy standing next to a carefully constructed rocket model holding a blue ribbon. The child was smiling, but his eyes looked disappointed. Elon didn't show up. He texted me an hour before, said there was a critical issue at SpaceX. A critical issue. His 12-year-old son's science fair wasn't critical. Griffin won second place. He called his dad to tell him. Elon said, "Great job, buddy. Send me a picture." That was it. No apology, no explanation. Just send me a picture like Griffin was an employee filing a report. Sarah felt her heart ache for that child. The triplets were younger, so they didn't notice as much at first. But the twinsa, Griffin and Xaviera, they started to understand. They'd see Elon on TV, giving interviews about colonizing Mars and saving humanity, and then he'd miss their birthday party. They'd read articles calling him a genius, and then he'd forget to call them for 2 weeks. Justine's voice grew thick with emotion. Saxona, one of the triplets, had a soccer tournament when he was 10 years old. He'd been talking about it for weeks. Elon said he'd try to make it. Saxon's face lit up. He told his whole team that his dad was Elon Musk and he was coming to watch. The day of the tournament, Saxon kept looking at the sidelines, searching for his father. Every time a new parent arrived, his head would turn, but Elon never came. She wiped her eyes. After the Gamia, which Saxon's team won, by the way, he walked over to me and said, "I knew he wouldn't come. I don't know why I thought he would. He was 10 years old, Sarah. 10 years old and already learning not to hope for his father's presence. That's what Elon did to his children. He taught them not to expect anything from him." "Did you confront him about these disappointments?" Sarah asked. "Every single time. I'd call or text, 'You missed Griffin's science fair. He was devastated,' or 'Saxon waited for you at his game. You need to call him and apologize.' And Elon would respond with the same types of things. 'I had an unavoidable meeting, or Tesla is in a critical phase, or they'll understand when they are older.'" As if understanding made the pain go away. Justine's hands clenched into fists. The worst was birthdays. He'd miss their actual birthdays for work, then try to make up for it by buying extravagant gifts. A custom computer for Griffin, designer clothes for Xavier, the latest gaming systems for the triplets. Expensive things that said, "I have money, but not I know who you are as a person." "Did the children appreciate the gifts?" Sarah asked. "At first, yes, But by their teenage years, they saw through it. Xavier told me once, "Dad thinks he can buy us. Like we are products he can acquire with the right transaction." That was at age 14. My child understood at 14 that their father treated relationships as commercial exchanges. She showed Sarah another photo, the 5 children at Christmas 2017, surrounded by expensive wrapped presents. Look at their faces. They're not excited. They're going through the motions because they'd learned that gifts weren't love. Gifts were Elon's way of avoiding actual emotional connection. Here's a $5,000 laptop instead of me showing up to your school play. Here's a trip to Disneyland with nannies instead of me taking you myself. How did this affect their relationship with you? Sarah asked. It made me everything. I was mom and dad. I was the one who showed up to every school event, every soccer game, every parent-teacher conference, every doctor's appointment. I was the one who helped with homework, listened to their problems, celebrated their victories, comforted them through failures. I was present, and presence is everything to children. Justine's voice softened with pride. My children are good people despite having Elon Musk as a father. They're kind, empathetic, grounded. They understand that success isn't just about money or achievement. That's because they were raised by someone who prioritized them, who showed them that being present matters more than being impressive. But there was pain too, Sarah observed. So much pain, especially for Xavier. Justine's expression grew troubled. Xavier was always sensitive, thoughtful, questioning, more emotionally aware than the others. And starting around age 13, I noticed Xavier pulling away, not from me, but from everything connected to Elon. Didn't want to visit him, didn't want to talk about him. Would get upset when kids at school asked about having Elon Musk as a father. She paused, choosing her words carefully. Xavier was also exploring identity, trying to figure out who they were separate from being Elon Musk's kid, and part of that exploration was gender identity. Xavier told me at 15 that she didn't identify as male, that she was transgender, that she wanted to transition and be called by a different name. How did you react? Sarah asked gently. Told her I loved her unconditionally, that I supported her completely, that she was brave for being honest about who she was. We found therapists who specialized in transgender youth. We started the process of social transition, new name, new pronouns. It was scary and beautiful watching my child become more authentically herself. Justine's expression darkened. And then I had to tell Elon, because legally we had joint custody. Couldn't make these decisions alone, even though I was the only parent actually parenting. I called him, explained the situation, said our child was transgender and needed our support. What did he say? He was silent for a long time. Then he said, "This is a phase, don't encourage it." Said, "This isn't a phase. This is who she is. She needs her parents to support her." And he said something I'll never forget. "I'm not going to participate in the destruction of my son with this woke mind virus nonsense." Sarah's jaw dropped. He said that to you. Word for word. He blamed me, blamed the school system, blamed liberal culture. He refused to use her correct name or pronouns. He told me I was ruining his child by giving in to delusions. He said if I continued down this path, he'd fight me legally for encouraging mental illness. Justine's voice shook with anger. My child was struggling with identity, coming out as transgender, one of the most vulnerable moments of her life, and her father called it a woke mind virus. He made it about politics, about ideology, about his personal beliefs. He couldn't see past his own opinions to recognize his child's pain and need for acceptance. How did your daughter react? She was crushed. She'd we'd both hoped that Elon would surprise us, that he'd put his child's well-being above his personal views. But he didn't. He doubled down. He started posting things on Twitter about gender ideology, about protecting children from woke culture, and every tweet felt like a personal attack on his own child. Justine wiped tears from her eyes. Viviana, that's the name she Chosia, stopped going to visits with her father, just refused. At 16, she had the legal right to decide. and she decided she couldn't be around someone who rejected her fundamental identity. She'd text him occasionally, but he'd respond by calling her by her old name, using wrong pronouns, pretending she hadn't transitioned. "That must have been devastating for both of you," Sarah said. "It was the final breaking point for Vivian. She told me, I don't have a father. Have a biological sperm donor who happens to be famous, but he's not my dad," and I couldn't argue with her because she was right. Elon had every opportunity to be a father, to love, support, and accept his child unconditionally. And he chose his ego over his daughter. Justine looked directly at Sarah. The triplets still see him occasionally, more out of obligation than desire. Griffin maintains minimal contact. But Vivian, she was done. Completely done. And that's when I knew couldn't protect Elon's reputation anymore, because my silence was implicitly endorsing his behavior. My silence was saying it was okay to abandon your children emotionally. It wasn't okay, it never was. She took a deep breath. In 2022, when Vivian turned 18, she did something that made headlines. Something that forced the world to see a crack in Elon's perfect public image. And that's when I decided it was time to tell the whole truth. Justine's hands trembled as she pulled out her phone one more time. The barista had turned off half the lights in the coffee shop, but gave them space to finish. April 18, 2022. That's the date everything changed. That's the date my daughter filed legal documents with the Los Angeles County Superior caught to change her name and gender marker. But it wasn't just a name change. It was a complete rejection of her father. She turned her phone to show Sarah a news article from that time. The headline read, "Elon Musk's child files to change name, distances from father." The court filing said, "I no longer live with or wish to be related to my biological father in any way, shape, or form." Those were Vivian's words. At 18 years old, my child legally declared she wanted nothing to do with Elon Musk. She took my maiden name, Wilson. Vivian Jenna Wilson. She erased Musk from her identity completely. Sarah could hear the pain in Justine's voice, even through the pride. "How did you find out she was going to do this?" Sarah asked. "She told me a few weeks before. She was 18, legally an adult, and didn't need my permission. But she wanted my support. She sat me down and said, 'Mom, I can't carry his name anymore.' Every time someone says Musk, feel like I'm pretending to be someone I'm not. He doesn't accept me. He doesn't respect me. Why should I keep his name?" Justine's eyes filled with tears. And I understood completely, but I also knew what this would mean. The media attention, the public scrutiny, the way people would dissect her decision. I asked her, "Are you sure? Once you file this publicly, there's no taking it back. Everyone will know." And she said, "Good. Maybe then people will stop worshiping him like he's some kind of savior. Maybe they'll see he can't even maintain a relationship with his own children." "How did you feel about her decision?" Sarah asked. Heartbroken and proud at the same time. Heartbroken because no child should have to legally disown their parent. That kind of pain, that kind of rejection runs deep, but proud because she was standing up for herself. She was refusing to be invisible, refusing to accept conditional love, refusing to carry the name of someone who denied her existence. Justine showed Sarah another article, this one with quotes from legal experts discussing the unusual nature of the filing. Most name changes are routine, marriage, divorce, personal preference. But Vivian's filing specifically stated she wanted no relationship with her biological father. That's rare. That makes a statement. And the media picked up on it immediately. Within hours, it was national news. By the next day, international. "How did Elon react?" Sarah asked. Publicly, he said nothing at first, completely silent. His PR team gave some generic statement about respecting privacy and loving all his children. But privately, Justine's voice hardened. "He called me furious, absolutely furious. He blamed me for turning his child against him. He said I'd poisoned Vivian's mind. That I'd encouraged this to embarrass him publicly." "What did you say?" "I said, Elon, look in the mirror. You did this. You rejected your daughter when she came out. You refused to use her correct name or pronouns. You posted publicly about gender ideology while your own child was suffering. This is the consequence of your choices, and he hung up on me, just hung up. Justine took a sip of her now-cold tea. A few weeks later, Elon gave an interview where he talked about losing his child to the woke mind virus. He said schools and culture had brainwashed kids into transgender ideology. He made it political instead of personal. He couldn't admit that he'd failed as a father. Instead, he blamed society, blamed me, blamed everyone except himself. That must have hurt Vivian terribly, Sarah said. It destroyed her. She read that interview and called me sobbing. She said he'd rather believe in some conspiracy theory than accept that I'm just being myself. He'd rather blame the entire world than admit he's a bad father, and she was right. Elon would rather create an elaborate narrative about cultural brainwashing than face the simple truth. His child needed love and acceptance, and he couldn't provide either. Justine's voice grew fierce. That interview was when I decided I was done protecting him, done making excuses, done staying silent while he played victim. My daughter had the courage to tell her truth publicly. The least I could do was tell mine. But you waited 2 more years, Sarah observed. Why? Because Vivian asked me to. She said, Mom, let this be my story right now. Don't make it about you and Dad's marriage. Let people focus on transgender rights and acceptance, and I respected that. Her coming out, her name change, her rejection of Ilona, that was her journey. I didn't want to overshadow it with my own grievances. Justine leaned forward. But I also spent those 2 years watching Elon's behavior get worse. He bought Twitter in 2022, renamed it X, and his posts became increasingly erratic. He'd tweet conspiracy theories, attack journalists, make controversial statements about everything from politics to artificial intelligence. The man the world saw on social media was the man I'd lived with. Impulsive, defensive, unable to accept criticism. Did the other children react to Vivian's name change? Sarah asked. Griffin supported her completely. He told her, I get it. I still use the name Musk because it opens doors for me, but understand why you don't want to. The triplets were younger, still processing everything. But they saw how Elon reacted, and it affected their relationship with him too. She pulled out one more photo, recent, from 2024. 5 young adults, aged 20 and 18, together at what looked like a family dinner. They were smiling, close, clearly bonded. This is my family. These 5 people who survived having Elon Musk as a father, who grew up essentially fatherless despite their dad being one of the most famous men alive, who learned that love isn't about money or achievement, it's about showing up. And Elon never showed up. Do any of them have relationships with him now? Sarah asked. Minimal. Griffin texts him occasionally about business stuff. He's interested in technology and sometimes asks Elon technical questions. The triplets see him maybe once or twice a year, very brief visits. But there's no real relationship. They're strangers who share DNA. Justine's expression grew pained. And Vivian? Nothing. 0 contact. Elon has tried reaching out a few times, but always on his terms. Never apologizing, never accepting responsibility, just expecting her to come back and pretend everything's fine. And she won't. She's built a life without Hema. She's an activist now, working with organizations that support LGBTQ+ youth and children of famous parents who feel invisible. She's turned her pain into purpose. You must be incredibly proud of her, Sarah said. I am, of all of them. They could have become bitter, entitled, messed up kids trading on their father's name. Instead, they're thoughtful, grounded young adults who understand that being a good person matters more than being a successful person. That's despite Elon, not because of him. Justine checked the time on her phone. After Vivian's name change made headlines, I started getting messages. Hundreds of them, from other ex-wives of powerful men, from children of famous fathers, from women who'd lost themselves in marriages to ambitious men. They all said the same thing, thank you for your daughter's courage. It helped me understand my own situation. "That's when you decided to speak out?" Sarah prompted. "That's when I realized my story mattered. Not because I married someone famous, but because my experience wasn't unique. There are millions of women who disappear in marriages. Millions of children who grow up with physically present but emotionally absent fathers. Millions of families sacrificed on the altar of changing the world." She looked directly at Sarah. "And I had something nobody else had, documented proof of what I'm about to tell you. Proof that explains everything about Elon Musk's behavior. Proof that I've kept secret for 17 years because I thought I was protecting him. But I realized, Noah, I wasn't protecting him. I was enabling a pattern that's hurt everyone who's ever loved him." Sarah felt her pulse quicken. "The folder." "The folder," Justine confirmed. "It's time to open it. Time to show you what I found in 2007 that explained why Elon Musk is incapable of being a husband or father. Time to reveal the real nightmare, the secret that changes everything." She stood up, gathering her things. "Let's go to my house. I want to show you the documents, and then you'll understand why this story needed to be told, why silence was never protection, it was just prolonging the inevitable truth." They drove in separate cars to Justine's home in the hills above Los Angeles. It was a modest house compared to the mansion's Elon owned, a comfortable four-bedroom with a view of the city lights. Sarah noticed family photos everywhere, the children at various ages, graduations, holidays, everyday moments. A home filled with actual life, not a showpiece. Justine led Sarah to her office, a small room lined with bookshelves. Her own novels sat on one shelf. She'd eventually published 3 fantasy books after the divorce. Sarah noticed they were under the name Justine Musk, not Wilson. "Kept the name professionally," Justine explained, seeing Sarah's glance. "My readers knew me as Justine Musk, and honestly, it felt like reclaiming something. He didn't get to take my author identity too." She moved to a closet and pulled out a small fireproof safe. Her hands shook slightly as she entered the combination. "I've opened this maybe 5 times in 17 years. Each time, I'd look at what's inside and think, should I tell someone? Should I expose this? And each time, I'd lock it back up. Because I thought I was protecting my children's father. I thought keeping his secret was the right thing to do." The safe door swung open. Inside was a manila folder, worn at the edges, with "Personal Confidential" written across the front in Elon's handwriting. Justine pulled it out and sat down at her desk. Sarah sat across from her, recorder running, notebook ready. "In June 2008, when Elon left the divorce papers on the kitchen counter, I spent the next few days in shock. But also had to pack up his things from his home office, the room he'd used maybe 10 times in 8 years because he was never home. His lawyers wanted everything sent to his new apartment." She opened the folder carefully. Most of it was boring business stuff. Old contracts, financial documents, notes about meetings. But this filing cabinet in the back of the closet, it had personal files, medical records, insurance papers, and this folder buried under everything else. Justine pulled out the first document. It was a letterhead from a psychiatric practice in Palo Alto, dated March 2007. "This is a psychological evaluation. Elon's primary care doctor had referred him to a psychiatrist because of severe stress symptoms. He was having panic attacks, insomnia, physical symptoms from overwork. The doctor insisted on a mental health evaluation." Sarah leaned forward to see the document. It was a standard psychological assessment form. Elon went to 2 appointments, only 2. Then he stopped going because he said therapy was a waste of time. But the psychiatrist had already completed a preliminary evaluation. Justine's voice was steady, but her hands trembled. "This is what I found." She pointed to a section of the report. Sarah read carefully, her eyes widening. The evaluation noted several observations. Patient demonstrates significantly reduced emotional effect. Reports difficulty identifying own emotions and understanding others' emotional states. Shows marked discomfort with emotional expression, describing feelings as inefficient and distracting from objectives. Exhibits strong preference for logical, systematic thinking over emotional processing. Keep reading, Justine said quietly. The next section was more clinical. Assessment suggests patient presence with characteristics consistent with autism spectrum disorder, likely high functioning. Additional consideration for alexithymia, the inability to identify and describe emotions in oneself. Patient intellectually understands that relationships and emotional bonds are important, but reports being unable to access emotional connection in meaningful ways. Sarah looked up at Justine. He was diagnosed with autism and alexithymia. Not officially diagnosed. This was a preliminary assessment after only 2 sessions. The psychiatrist recommended further evaluation and ongoing therapy, but look at the note at the bottom. Sarah read the handwritten addition. Patient unlikely to follow through with treatment recommendations. States that acknowledging emotional limitations would be admitting weakness and prefers to optimize around the problem rather than address it. Expressed belief that emotional capacity is less important than cognitive achievement. Prognosis for relationship improvement poor without intervention. Elon never went back, Justine said. He never got an official diagnosis, never got treatment, never told Anionia, including me, his wifia, about any of this. He just decided to optimize around the problem, which meant ignoring his emotional limitations and building companies instead. Sarah sat back, processing this information. Did you know about any of this during your marriage? Nothing. Had no idea he'd even seen a psychiatrist. He told me he was going to see a business consultant about stress management. He lied about where he was going. And when he got this evaluation, this information that could have explained everything, that could have helped us understand each other better, he buried it. He hid it away and pretended it didn't exist. Justine pulled out another documenta, a handwritten note in Elon's distinctive writing, dated April 2007, just weeks after the evaluation. Read this. This is Elon writing to himself, trying to process what the psychiatrist told him. Sarah read aloud. The doctor says I don't process emotions normally, that I can't connect with people the way others do. But is that really a deficit or is it an advantage? Emotions cloud judgment. They make people inefficient. Maybe I'm not Brockner, maybe I'm optimized for what matters. Logic, progress, achievement, the mission. The note continued. Justine wants something from me, can't give. She wants emotional intimacy, whatever that means. She wants me to share feelings and be present, but I am present. I provide everything she needs materially. Why isn't that enough? Why do humans need this constant emotional validation? It's exhausting and pointless. Sarah felt chills reading Elon's words about his own wife. The final line read, maybe the solution isn't to fix myself, maybe it's to find a different equation, different variables. The mission is what matters, everything else is negotiable. Different variables, Justine repeated bitterly. That's what it was to him, a variable in an equation that wasn't working. So he found different variables, Tallulah, then Grimes, then Shivon. But the equation never changes because he's the constant, and he refuses to see himself as the problem. Sarah looked through more documents in the folder. There were printouts of emails Elon had sent to the psychiatrist after quitting therapy, defending his decision. There was a list he'd made of relationship optimization strategies, circumflex, things like schedule quality time and remember important dates, and verbal affirmation protocol, circumflex, treating love like a computer program he could debug. This is the secret of carried, Justine said. This is the nightmare that explains everything. Wasn't married to someone who chose not to love me. Was married to someone who is neurologically incapable of emotional connection the way most people experience it. And he knew it. He had professional confirmation of his limitations, and he chose to do nothing about it. Why didn't you reveal this during the divorce? Sarah asked. Because I was terrified. His lawyers were already painting me as mentally unstable. If I brought up his psychiatric evaluation, They'd say I was trying to destroy him with stolen medical information. They'd accuse me of violating confidentiality laws. They'd make me look vindictive and unstable. And I'd lose my children. Justine's voice grew stronger. But also, part of me felt sorry for him. I know how that sounds. After everything he put me through, I still had compassion for him, because having autism isn't a character flaw. Having alexithymia isn't evil. These are neurological differences. If Elon had acknowledged them, gotten help, learned coping strategies, worked with therapists, things could have been different. But he didn't, Sarah said. He didn't. He chose to see emotional connection as a weakness rather than something worth developing. He chose achievement over relationships. He chose his mission over his family, over and over and over again. And that's not his autism, that's his choice. Justine gathered the documents carefully. I want to be very clear about something. I'm not revealing this to stigmatize autism or mental health conditions. Many people on the autism spectrum have loving relationships and healthy families. Many people with alexithymia work hard to understand and connect with others. Being neurodivergent doesn't make you a bad person or incapable of love. She looked directly at Sarah. But refusing to acknowledge your limitations, refusing to get help, refusing to work on yourself while demanding others accept you as you are, that's a choice. And Elon made that choice every day. He chose his ego over growth. He chose denial over self-awareness. He chose to hurt people rather than admit he needed help. Sarah was quiet for a moment, absorbing everything. How do you think the world will react to this information? Some people will defend him. They'll say I'm violating his privacy or exploiting his medical information. Some will say this excuses his behavior, that he can't help being the way he is. And some will understand what I'm really saying, that Elon Musk has spent decades building a public image as a visionary genius while refusing to address the parts of himself that destroy relationships. Justine carefully placed the documents back in the folder. He has 11 children now with 3 different women. 11 children who will grow up knowing their father more through news articles than personal connection. And when they're adults dealing with the emotional consequences of having an absent father, they deserve to know the truth. It wasn't their fault. It wasn't their mother's faults. It was Elon's unwillingness to be vulnerable enough to truly connect with another human being. She looked at the folder one last time before placing it on the desk between them. This is the real marriage nightmare, Sarah. Not that he was cruel, not that he was unfaithful, but that he was broken in a way he refused to fix, and everyone who loved him paid the price. Sarah spent 3 days verifying the documents with medical experts and legal advisors before writing her article. She consulted with autism specialists who confirmed that the evaluation appeared legitimate and that the described symptoms were consistent with high-functioning autism and alexithymia. She spoke with divorce attorneys about the legal implications of revealing this information. She wanted to get everything right. On December 15, 2024, the article went live on the magazine's website. The Marriage Nightmare, inside Justine Musk's 20-year silence about Elon Musk's refusal to address his emotional limitations. Within an hour, it was the most-read article on the internet. Justine sat in her living room, watching her phone explode with notifications. Griffin and the triplets were with her. Vivian was at her own apartment but texted constantly. They'd all agreed this was necessary, but that didn't make it less terrifying. "Mom, Twitter is going crazy," Griffin said, scrolling on his laptop. "Like really crazy." The reactions were immediate and divided. Some people were sympathetic. Mental health advocates posted long threads about the importance of acknowledging neurodivergence and getting proper support. One popular tweet read, "This isn't about shaming autism. It's about accountability. Being neurodivergent doesn't excuse refusing treatment or hurting people." Elon Musk had resources to get help and chose not to. That's the story. Others were furious. Elon's defenders called Justine vindictive, accused her of violating medical privacy, claimed she was trying to destroy him out of jealousy. The comments were brutal. She's bitter because he moved on to younger, prettier women. This is a hit piece from a failed ex-wife. Leave the man alone, he's trying to save humanity. Tech journalists wrote think pieces analyzing Elon's public behavior through this new lens. One article titled, "The Genius Who Can't Connect." Understanding Elon Musk's pattern examined his serial relationships, his controversial tweets, his conflicts with employees and journalists, all as potential manifestations of someone struggling with emotional processing. Autism advocacy groups issued statements. Some praised Justine for distinguishing between having autism and refusing to work on oneself. Others worried the article would reinforce negative stereotypes about autistic people being incapable of love. By the second day, major news networks were covering the story. Justine received interview requests from every major outlet. She declined most, but agreed to a few carefully chosen appearances. "The goal isn't to destroy Elon," she told one interviewer. "The goal is to tell the truth about what it's like to love someone who can't love you back in the way you need, and to make clear that having limitations isn't the problem, refusing to acknowledge them is." On the third day, Elon responded. It was late at night when he posted on X. Justine was in her kitchen making tea when Griffin called out, "Mom, Dad just posted something." She walked over to read the screen. Her hands were shaking. The post was longer than Elon's usual style. "Regarding recent article about my private medical information, I'm on the autism spectrum. I've known for years. Process the world differently than neurotypical people. I thought I could logic my way through relationships. I was wrong. To my children, I'm sorry I didn't understand what you needed. I'm trying to learn, even now. Being a parent and entrepreneur is brutally hard. I've made many mistakes, but my kids know I love them, even if I show it differently." It was the most vulnerable statement Elon Musk had ever made publicly. The internet exploded again. Some people praised his honesty. Others noted he still hadn't actually apologized to Justine or taken full responsibility. He'd said mistakes without specifying what they were. He'd said he loved his children without acknowledging the pain he'd caused them. Justine read the post 3 times, her emotions complicated. "At least he admitted something," Saxon said quietly. He was sitting next to his mother on the couch. "He admitted the diagnosis," Justine said carefully. "But did he take responsibility for choosing not to address it, for refusing therapy, for hurting people and blaming it on being different?" Her phone rang, unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. "Justine, it's Tallulah." Tallulah Riley, Elon's second ex-wife, the woman he'd married twice and divorced twice. "Hi, Tallulah," Justine said, surprised. "I read your article. Called to say thank you." Tallulah's British accent was soft. "You put into words what couldn't articulate. I thought I was going mad during my marriages to Elon. I thought if I just tried harder, understood him better, gave him more space, he'd finally be present. But it was never about me, was it?" "No," Justine said gently. "It was never about us. It was about him being unable to do the emotional work required for intimacy." They talked for an hour. 2 women who'd loved the same impossible man, comparing experiences, finding comfort in shared understanding. Tallulah revealed that she'd also suspected Elon was on the autism spectrum, but he'd always dismissed it. She described the same patterns Justine had experienced: the initial intensity, the gradual withdrawal, the replacement of presence with money. "Do you regret marrying him?" Tallulah asked. "I regret the years I lost myself," Justine said, "but I don't regret my children. They're the best thing that came from that marriage. What about you?" "I learned what I need in a partner," Tallulah said. "Someone who shows up, someone who does the hard emotional work. Elon taught me that by showing me the opposite." After they hung up, Justine felt lighter. The article was out, the truth was told, and she wasn't alone in her experience. Over the following weeks, more responses came in. Grimes, the musician who'd had 3 children with Elon, posted cryptically on social media about loving someone who lives in the future and can't be present in the now. She didn't mention Elon by name, but everyone knew. Shivon Zilis, the Neuralink executive who'd had twins with Elon, stayed silent publicly. But sources close to her told journalists she was processing complex feelings about co-parenting with someone emotionally unavailable. The 5 children from Justine's marriage responded differently. Griffin posted a simple statement: "My mom told her truth. I support her completely. I love both my parents, but understand their relationship was complicated." Vivian was more direct. She tweeted, "Finally, someone said it. My father is brilliant at engineering and terrible at being a human. Both things can be true." The triplets, now 18, stayed mostly quiet but let it be known they supported their mother. Mental health professionals weighed in. Dr. Angela Martinez, a psychologist specializing in autism and relationships, wrote an op-ed. "The Musk situation highlights something important. Neurodivergence is an explanation, not an excuse. With proper support, people on the autism spectrum can develop strategies for emotional connection." Mr. Musk had access to unlimited resources. His choice not to pursue them says more about his priorities than his diagnosis. Business analysts discussed whether this revelation would affect Elon's companies. Tesla stock dipped slightly, then recovered. SpaceX continued operations normally. Investors seemed to separate Elon the engineer from Elon the father and husband, but the court of public opinion was divided. Some people's worship of Elon was unshakna. They argued that genius requires sacrifice, that you can't change the world and have perfect relationships too. Others began questioning the cost of that genius. Articles appeared with titles like, "What does it profit a man to gain Mars but lose his children?" and "The Hidden Price of Visionary Leadership." 3 weeks after the article published, Justine received an unexpected email. It was from a woman named Dr. Susan Chen, a family therapist specializing in high-achieving families. "MS. Musk, I've worked with dozens of families like Yasa, where one partner's ambition consumes everything else. Your story matters because it's not unique. It's a pattern affecting millions of families. Would you consider speaking about this publicly? Not just about Elon, but about the broader issue of sacrificing relationships for achievement." Justine stared at the email for a long time. She'd told her story. She'd revealed the secret, but maybe there was more to do. Maybe her experience could help others recognize the patterns earlier, set boundaries sooner, protect themselves better. She wrote back, "Yes, I'd like to help, because if my nightmare can prevent someone else's, then maybe it was worth something after all." 2 months after the article published, Justine sat across from Dr. Susan Chen in a bright conference room at a family therapy center in Los Angeles. They were preparing for a talk Justine would give to a group of women going through high-conflict divorces. "What's the main message you want to share, Dr.?" Chen asked, her kind eyes focused on Justine. "That it's not about the money," Justine said immediately. "Everyone thinks because I was married to a billionaire, my problems were different. Easier somehow, because I had financial security. But emotional abandonment feels the same whether you're in a mansion or a studio apartment." Dr. Chen nodded. "And what do you want them to understand about Elon specifically?" Justine thought carefully. "That he's not evil. He's not a monster. He's a human being with significant limitations who refuses to work on them. And that combination, brilliance plus emotional unavailability plus unwillingness to change, creates a specific kind of pain for everyone around him." She'd spent weeks thinking about this, about how to talk about Elon fairly while still being honest about the damage he'd caused. "People worship him," Justine continued. "They see the rockets landing, the electric cars, the ambitious plans for the future. They think money and success equal happiness. But I've watched this man for 24 years now. He's the richest person in the world, and he's also the loneliest person I know." "Tell me about that, Dr." Chen prompted. "He has 11 children with 3 different women, but he barely knows any of them deeply. He can tell you the engineering specs of every vehicle Tesla makes, but he can't tell you his children's favorite foods, or what makes them laugh, or what they dream about at night. Justine pulled out her phone and showed Dr. Chen a recent photo she'd seen online. Elon at some tech conference, surrounded by admirers, looking tired despite the crowds. See his eyes? That's exhaustion, not just physical or existential. He's achieved almost everything he set out to do. Tesla is successful. SpaceX is launching rockets regularly. He bought Twitter and renamed it X. He has more money than he could spend in 10 lifetimes. And he's still not happy, because achievement doesn't fill the hole that connection fills. Do you think he recognizes that? Dr. Chen asked. Sometimes, maybe, in rare moments of clarity. That's what that post on X suggested, that he's aware something's wrong. But awareness isn't the same as change. He's had that awareness since 2007 when the psychiatrist evaluated him. 17 years of knowing he processes relationships differently, and what has he done about it? Nothing meaningful. Justine stood and walked to the window, looking out at the Los Angeles skyline. I used to be angry at him, furiously angry, but now I mostly feel sad, because he's trying to colonize Mars, but he can't build a home on Earth. He's trying to save humanity, but he can't save his relationships with the people who love him. That's tragic, not triumphant. She turned back to Dr. Chen. Last week, something happened that made me realize how deep his loneliness goes. Griffina, my Sona, texted Elon to ask a technical question about artificial intelligence. Just a simple question for a school project. And Elon wrote back this long, detailed explanation with diagrams and equations. He spent probably 2 hours on it. That sounds nice, Dr. Chen said. It does, doesn't it? Except Griffin told me it was the longest communication he'd had with his father in 6 months. Elon can spend 2 hours explaining neural networks, but he can't spend 10 minutes asking his son how he's doing. Can't ask about his life, his friends, his hopes, because technical questions are safe. Emotional questions require vulnerability. Justine sat back down. Recently, I heard through mutual acquaintances that Elon asked one of his assistants to create a database of his children, their ages, interests, school information, important dates. He's trying to manage fatherhood like a project, with spreadsheets and data, because that's the only way he knows how to approach problems. How did that make you feel? Dr. Chen asked. Sad, so sad, because he has the desire to know his children, but he can't do it the normal way, by spending time with them, talking to them, being present. He needs a database to remember that Saxon loves soccer and Kai likes reading science fiction. These are things you should know from living life with your kids, not from a spreadsheet. She paused, collecting her thoughts. A few weeks ago, I ran into someone who works at Tesla. They told me Elon sometimes sleeps at the factory in Fremont on a couch in his office. He's worth over $200 billion, and he's sleeping on an office couch. When I heard that, I thought, he's still running, still using work to avoid dealing with himself. The locations change, different factories, different compañías, but the pattern stays the same. Do you think he's capable of change at this point? Dr. Chen asked. I honestly don't know. He's in his 50s now. The brain becomes less flexible with age. And he's surrounded by people who worship him, who tell him he's a genius, who don't challenge him to grow emotionally. Why would he change when the world rewards him for staying exactly as he is? Justine's phone buzzed. It was a text from Vivian. Mom, did you see Dad posted about population collapse again? Still hasn't called me in 2 years, but he's worried about birth rates. The irony. She showed the text to Dr. Chen. This is what I mean. Elon posts constantly about population decline, about how humanity needs more children, and he has 11 children who barely know him. He's created the population he says the world needs, but he hasn't built relationships with them. It's all abstract tehima, data points and demographics, not actual human beings with feelings. That must be painful for your children, Dr. Chen observed. It's devastating, especially as they get older and start processing what it means to have a famous father who's essentially absent. They see other kids' fathers coaching soccer teams or attending school plays. They see their friends' dads who are present and engaged. And they know their father could be that persona. He has the resources, the intelligence, the time if he chose to make it. But he doesn't choose them. Justine's voice grew stronger. And here's what people don't understand. Elon's pattern isn't just affecting his ex-wives and children. It's affecting everyone who works with him, everyone who invests in his companies, everyone who believes in his vision. Because a person who can't maintain intimate relationships often struggles with all relationships. The employees he fires on a whim. The business partners he turns on. The journalists he attacks. It's all the same pattern: inability to handle emotional complexity, to accept criticism, to be vulnerable. "Do you worry about his other children, Doctor?" Chen asked. "The ones with Grimes and Shivonzillis?" "All the time. Those children are even younger than mine were when Elon was absent. They're going to grow up with the same experiencia, a famous father who exists more as an idea than as a present parent. And their mothers are dealing with the same thing I dealt with, trying to co-parent with someone who treats relationships as optimization problems." She thought about the Babiesa, X, Exa, Techno, and the twins with Shivon whose names had never been publicly revealed. Those children will grow up seeing their father on TV more than in person. They'll read about him changing the world while he misses their birthdays. They'll be proud and confused and hurt, just like my children were. And 20 years from now, they might be sitting where I'm sitting, trying to explain to someone why having Elon Musk as a father was both a privilege and a wound. Dr. Chen was quiet for a moment. "What do you hope Elon takes away from your article, from all of this?" Justine considered the question carefully. "I hope he understands that being the richest man in the world means nothing if you're emotionally bankrupt. Hope he realizes that landing rockets on Mars won't matter to him on his deathbed if he has no one who truly knows him. I hope he gets help, real help, from therapists who challenge him, not yes-men who enable him." She looked directly at Dr. Chen. "But honestly, I don't think he will, because that would require admitting he needs help. It would require vulnerability. And Elon Musk has built his entire identity around not needing anyone. So he'll keep building companies and having children and accumulating wealth. And he'll die lonely, surrounded by achievements but not by love." 3 weeks after her conversation with Dr. Chen, Justine did something she hadn't planned to do. She bought a plane ticket to Austin, Texas. It was a Tuesday morning in March 2025 when she landed. She hadn't told Elon she was coming. She'd simply texted him, "I'm in Austin. Can we talk? Face to face." No lawyers, no recordings, just 2 people who used to be married. He responded 20 minutes later. "Gigafactory, door PM, gate 5. No questions, no small talk, just logistics. That was still Elon. Justine rented a car and drove through Austin, a city she barely recognized. When she and Elon had divorced, Austin was still relatively small. Now it was a tech hub, transformed partly by Elon's decision to move Tesla headquarters here. Even after everything, his presence changed entire cities. The Tesla Gigafactory sprawled across the landscape like a technological fortress. Justine showed her ID at Gate 5, and a security guard made a call. Minutes later, a young woman in Tesla gear arrived to escort her inside. They walked through massive production floors where robots assembled cars with precise, inhuman efficiency. Justine thought about how much Elon probably preferred these robots to people. Robots didn't have feelings. They didn't need emotional connection. They just performed their programmed tasks perfectly. The escort led her to a conference room with glass walls overlooking the factory floor. "Mr. Musk will be here shortly," she said, then left Justine alone. Justine stood at the window, watching the assembly line below. Hundreds of people working in coordination, building Elon's dream of electric vehicles for everyone. It was impressive. She'd never denied his achievements were real and important. The door opened. Elon looked older than the last time she'd seen him in person, maybe 2 years ago at Griffin's high school graduation. His hair was thinner, more gray at the temples. He wore his usual uniforma, t-shirt and jeansa, but he looked tired. Deep tired, the kind that sleep couldn't fix. "Justine," he said, his voice neutral. "Elon," she replied. They stood there for a moment, two people who'd once promised forever to each other, now strangers who shared children and history and wounds. He sat down at the conference table. She sat across from him, maintaining distance. "I read your article," he said. "Obviously." "I figured you did. You published my private medical information. My lawyers say I could sue you for that." Justine had prepared for this. "Your lawyers can try, but I consulted with several attorneys before publishing. The information was obtained during marriage, relates to matters affecting our children, and the confidentiality agreement expired. Plus, you confirmed it publicly yourself when you posted about being on the spectrum. So good luck with that lawsuit." Elon's jaw tightened, but he didn't argue further. "Why did you come here?" he asked. "Because I needed to look you in the eye and ask you something I should have asked years ago." "What?" Justine took a breath. "Do you have any regrets about our marriage, about the kids, about the choices you made?" Elon was silent for a long time. He stared out at the factory floor, watching the robots work. When he finally spoke, his voice was quieter than she'd ever heard it. "I regret that I'm not built for that kind of life, that I couldn't be what you needed, that I can't be what the kids need. But I couldn't have done both, be the father you wanted and build these companies. The world needed Tesla. It needed SpaceX. Someone had to do it." "And it had to be you?" Justine asked. "Yes," he said simply. "I saw what needed to happen. I had the vision, the capital, the drive. If I'd stayed home having family dinners, we might not have electric vehicles becoming mainstream. We might not have private space companies pushing humanity forward." Justine felt a familiar frustration rising. "So you're saying your companies were more important than your family?" "I'm saying I made a choice. I chose what I was good at. I chose the mission over comfort. Was it the right choice? I don't know, but it was the only choice I could live with." "But could you live with it?" Justine pressed. "Really, are you happy, Elon?" He turned to look at her directly for the first time. His eyes were tired, but there was something else there too. Something that looked like pain, though she knew he probably couldn't name it as such. "Happy is irrelevant," he said. "I'm productive. I'm achieving goals. I'm moving humanity forward." "That's not an answer." "It's the only answer I have." They sat in silence. Through the glass walls, workers moved like small figures in a vast machine. Justine wondered how many of them had families waiting at home. How many of them managed to be present for their children in ways Elon never could. "Do you love any of your children?" Justine asked quietly. "And I mean really love them. Not intellectually understand you should love them, but actually feel love for them." Elon's discomfort was visible. He shifted in his chair, his hands moving restlessly on the table. "I think so," he said finally, "but not the way you mean. I care about their futures. I want them to have opportunities. I want them to succeed, but the daily emotional stuff," he trailed off. "You don't know how to do it," Justine finished for him. "No, I don't. And I've tried to logic my way through it, but you can't logic emotions. They don't respond to optimization. They just exist, and I don't understand them. Not in myself, not in others." It was the most honest he'd been with her in 24 years. "The article you wrote," he continued, "about the psychiatric evaluation. That was the first time anyone professionally told me something was different about how I process things, and I thought, good, different is how I build companies others can't build. Saw it as a competitive advantage." "But it cost you relationships," Justine said. "Yes, but relationships cost time. Time costs progress. I chose progress." "You chose loneliness," Justine corrected. "You can have all the progress in the world, but what does it matter if you die alone?" Elon's expression hardened slightly. "I won't die alone. I'll die having changed the course of human history. That's worth more than whatever normal people have." Justine felt a wave of sadness wash over her. After everything, the article, the public discussion, his own admission about being on the spectrum, Nothing had fundamentally changed in how he saw the world. "Do you know what Vivian said to me last week?" Justine asked. She said, "I hope Dad figures out that history remembers people who loved well more than people who built well." She's 20 years old, and she understands something you might never understand. "Vivian doesn't speak to me," Elon said, and for the first time, she heard something that might have been sadness in his voice. "Because you didn't speak to her. You didn't see her. You saw someone you wanted her to be instead of who she actually is. And she's done trying to be seen by someone who can't see past his own vision." Elon stood up abruptly. "Is there anything else? Have a production meeting in 10 minutes. Justine stood too. "Of course you do. There's always another meeting, another crisis, another priority bigger than the people who love you." They walked toward the door together, these two people who'd created 5 humans together but could barely speak the same emotional language. At the door, Justine turned back. "I didn't come here to hurt you, Elon. I came to see if there was any chance you understood what you've lost, what you're still losing every day." "And what's your assessment?" he asked. "That you're exactly who I thought you were, brilliant and broken, and unwilling to fix the broken parts because you think brilliance is enough." Justine drove away from the gigafactory with tears streaming down her face. She pulled over at a rest stop 20 minutes later, unable to see the road clearly. She'd hoped for something. She didn't know what exactly. Maybe remorse, maybe real self-awareness, maybe some sign that Elon understood the human cost of his choices. But he was the same person he'd always been, unable to see past his mission to the people sacrificed along the way. Her phone buzzed. It was Griffin. "Mom, how did it go?" She wiped her eyes. "About how I expected. Your father is still your father." "Did he ask about us?" Justine's heart broke a little more. "No, sweetie, he didn't." Griffin was quiet for a moment. "It's okay, Mom. I stopped expecting anything a long time ago. Are you all right?" "I will be. I'm flying home tomorrow. Love you." "I love you too." After hanging up, Justine sat in her rental car watching trucks pass on the highway. She thought about the conference room conversation, about Elon's admission that he'd chosen progress over relationships and didn't regret it. She pulled out her journaler. She'd started keeping one again after the article published and began writing. "Today I learned something important. You cannot make someone care about what they don't value. Elon values achievement, innovation, progress. He does not value emotional connection, presence, or intimacy in the same way. Not because he's evil, but because his brain literally assigns different weight to different things." She paused, pen hovering over paper. "For years, I thought if I could just explain clearly enough, if I could just make him understand how much pain his absence caused, he would change. But I was trying to convince someone to care about something their neurology doesn't flag as important. It's like trying to convince someone who's colorblind to appreciate the difference between red and green. They intellectually understand the difference exists, but they can't perceive it the way others do." A text came through from Tallulah Riley. "Heard you went to see him. You're braver than I am. How are you holding up?" Justine typed back, "I'm okay. Got closure, just not the kind I wanted. Wanted him to understand, but understanding requires emotional capacity he doesn't have." Tallulah responded quickly, "That's the hardest part, isn't it? Accepting that some people can't give you what you need, no matter how much you explain or hope or wait." They texted for a while, 2 women processing their experiences with the same emotionally unavailable man. Eventually, Tallulah wrote, "You know what I realized? Elon didn't fail at marriage. Marriage failed him. It's a system designed for people with typical emotional processing. He needed something differenta, a partnership based on shared mission rather than emotional intimacy. But he kept trying the traditional model and wondering why it didn't work." Justine stared at that message for a long time. There was truth in it. Elon had tried marriage multiple timsa, with her, with Tallulah twice, and he'd failed each time. Not because he was trying to fail, but because the structure itself required capacities he didn't have. She drove to her hotel in downtown Austin and spent the evening reflecting on everything. On her laptop, she pulled up photos from their mariagia, young Justine and young Elon at tech parties, at their wedding with their babies. In early photos, she looked happy, hopeful. By later photos, she looked like a ghost. She'd sacrificed herself trying to make something work that was structurally impossible. Like trying to grow flowers in concretia, you could water them, give them sunlight, tend them carefully, but the foundation wouldn't support growth. That night, she couldn't sleep. At 2 a.m, she got a text from an unknown number. When she opened it, her heart stopped. It was from Elon. "I lied today when you asked if I have regrets. I do have one regret, Nevada. I regret that I didn't know how to grieve with you. I was 29 years old and terrified of emotions, couldn't control. So I ran to work. I left you alone with that pain. That was wrong. I'm sorry." Justine stared at the message, reading it 3 times. In 22 years, Elon had never acknowledged what happened after Nevada died, had never apologized for abandoning her in grief. She typed back, "Thank you for saying that. It means more than you know." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, "I can't be what you needed me to be, but I should have tried harder. The kids deserved better than what I gave them. You deserved better." Justine felt tears starting again. This wasn't the big emotional breakthrough she'd once dreamed of. It was small, limited, coming 2 decades too late. But it was something. She wrote, "It's not too late for the kids. They're adults now, but they still need a father. Not your money or your achievements. Just you, present, trying." The response took 5 minutes. "I don't know how to do that." "Then learn," Justine typed. "Get therapy. Real therapy, not 2 sessions and quitting. Work on yourself like you work on rockets, with dedication and persistence. Your children are worth that effort." No response came. She waited an hour, then gave up and tried to sleep. The next morning, she checked her phone. One message from Elon, sent at 4 a.m, "Maybe you're right, I'll think about it." It wasn't a promise. It wasn't even a commitment. But it was the first time in 24 years that Elon had acknowledged he might need to change rather than expecting the world to accommodate him. On the flight home, Justine thought about progressa, not the kind Elon obsessed over, but the kind that happened inside people. The slow, painful work of becoming better humans. Of acknowledging limitations and working to overcome them. Of choosing growth over comfort. She'd spent 8 years married to someone who refused that work, 16 more years co-parenting with him. And in all that time, this was the first glimpse that maybe, possibly, he understood he had work to do. She thought about her children, Griffin studying engineering, but making sure to have work-life balance. Vivian becoming an activist, turning her pain into purpose. The triplets navigating their late teens with more emotional intelligence than their father had ever shown. They were breaking the cycle. They were learning from Elon's mistakes rather than repeating them. That was her legacy, she realized. Not the marriage she'd lost, but the children she'd raised to be whole people who understood that achievement without connection was hollow. When the plane landed in Los Angeles, she had a voicemail from Dr. Chen, "Justine, I've been contacted by 3 major women's organizations wanting you to speak about emotionally unavailable partners and high-achievement marriages. Are you interested?" Justine called back immediately. "Yes, because my story isn't unique. There are millions of women married to brilliant, ambitious men who can't be present. If my experience helps even one woman recognize the patterns earlier and protect herself better, then all of this was worth it." That evening, sitting in her home office surrounded by photos of her children, Justine began writing again. Not a fantasy novel this time, a memoir. The full story of loving someone incapable of loving back, of losing herself and finding herself again, of raising children in the shadow of genius. She titled it, "The Price of Progress: What It Costs to Love a Visionary." As she wrote the opening lines, her phone buzzed. A text from Vivian, "Mom, I'm proud of you, for telling the truth, for going to see Dad, for not giving up on the idea that people can change, even when they probably won't. Justine smiled through tears and wrote back, "I'm proud of you too, honey, for being brave enough to be yourself, for walking away from someone who couldn't see you. You're stronger than I ever was at your age." "I learned from the best," Vivian replied, and Justine realized something. Maybe she hadn't failed after all. Back in Los Angeles, Sarah Chen had been working on a follow-up piece. The first article had exploded across the internet, but she felt there was more to tell. She'd spent weeks interviewing psychologists, autism specialists, divorce attorneys, and other ex-partners of high-achieving individuals. She called Justine the day after she returned from Texas. "I want to write a second article," Sarah said. "Not about Elon specifically, but about the broader pattern. About what happens in relationships where one partner prioritizes achievement over everything else. About the hidden cost of genius that nobody talks about." Justine sat in her kitchen, coffee in hand. "What would you need from me?" "Your perspective, not as Elon's ex-wife, but as someone who survived this pattern and came out the other side. Someone who can help other women recognize the signs before they lose themselves completely." They met at the same coffee shop on Sunset Boulevard where their first conversation had taken place 4 months earlier. It felt like years had passed since that rainy November evening. "The response to the first article has been overwhelming," Sarah said, pulling out her laptop. "I've received over 5,000 emails. Want to know what most of them say?" Justine nodded. "Women writing to say this is my marriage. Men writing to say this is me. How do I change? Adult children of emotionally absent parents saying thank you for explaining my childhood. Mental health professionals saying this conversation is overdue. It's touched something deep." Sarah showed Justine some of the messages. "A woman from Seattle. I'm married to a surgeon who saves lives every day, but can't remember our anniversary or ask how I'm doing. Your article helped me understand I'm not crazy for feeling lonely in my marriage." A man from Boston. "I'm a tech founder, and I recognized myself in your description of Elon. I'm starting therapy this week because I don't want to lose my family the way he lost his." A college student from Texas. "My dad is a successful lawyer who was never at my school events or birthday parties. I thought he didn't love me. Now I understand he probably does, but doesn't know how to show it. It doesn't excuse his absence, but it helps me understand." Justine wiped her eyes, reading through the messages. Had no idea so many people would relate. "That's because the problem is epidemic," Sarah said. "We live in a culture that worships achievement and treats relationships as optional. That celebrates people who sacrifice everything for their careers and calls it ambition. That tells men especially that emotions are weakness and productivity is strength." She pulled up her notes for the new article. "I've interviewed Dr. Rachel Morgan, a psychologist who specializes in high-achieving couples. She says the pattern you experienced with Elon is extremely common in Silicon Valley, on Wall Street, in medicine, law, academia. Anywhere success is measured by external achievement rather than internal satisfaction." "What does she say causes it?" Justine asked. "Multiple factors. Sometimes it's neurodivergence like with Elona, people who genuinely process emotions differently. Sometimes it's trauma, people who learned early that achievement brings safety or approval. Sometimes it's culturala, especially for men, who are socialized to equate worth with professional success. And sometimes it's choicia, people who consciously prioritize career over relationships because that's what fulfills them." Justine thought about this. The why matters less than the what, though. Whether someone can't be present because of autism or won't be present because of choice, the effect on their family is the same. "Exactly," Sarah agreed. "And that's what I want to explore in this second piece, the impact on partners and children, the long-term costs that don't show up on balance sheets or in achievement metrics." Over the next hour, they discussed the broader implications. Justine shared insights from her years of therapy, from conversations with her children, from watching Elon's pattern repeat with multiple women. "Here's what I learned," Justine said. You can't change someone who doesn't see themselves as broken. Elon genuinely believes his way of operating is optimal. He's changed the automotive industry and revolutionized space travel. From his perspective, his choices worked. The fact that his relationships failed, that's collateral damage he's willing to accept. But is it fair to the people who love him? Sarah asked. Of course not, but fairness requires seeing other people as equally important to yourself. It requires empathy and emotional reciprocity. Those are things Elon struggles with fundamentally. So he makes calculations. The mission matters more than individual feelings. Progress matters more than presence. The future of humanity matters more than his relationship with his daughter. Justine's voice grew passionate. And our culture enables this. We celebrate Elon for working 100-hour weeks while his kids grow up without him. We praise his dedication and call it visionary. We act like his achievements justify his failures as a father and partner. But they don't. You can be brilliant and still show up for your children's birthdays. You can change the world and still call your kids regularly. The two aren't mutually exclusive here, unless you're someone who uses achievement as an excuse to avoid emotional work. Sarah was typing rapidly, capturing Justine's words. What would you say to women who are currently in relationships like yours was? Sarah asked. Justine thought carefully. I'd say, believe people when they show you who they are. If your partner consistently prioritizes work over you, if they can't have emotional conversations, if they treat relationships like problems to solve rather than connections to nurture, believe that. Don't waste years thinking you can change them or that you're not enough. It's not about you, it's about them. She continued, I'd also say, you can't love someone into emotional availability. I tried for 8 years. Compromised myself, lost my identity, became whoever I thought Elon needed me to be. And it changed nothing. Because the problem wasn't that I wasn't good enough. The problem was that he was fundamentally unable or unwilling to meet me halfway. What about the cultural piece? Sarah prompted. The way we celebrate these patterns. That needs to change, Justine said firmly. We need to stop treating emotional absence as the price of achievement. We need to stop acting like great men get a pass on being terrible fathers and partners. We need to measure success differently, not just by what people build, but by how they treat the people closest to them. She leaned forward intensely. Elon Musk will be remembered for Tesla and SpaceX. History will celebrate his contributions to electric vehicles and space exploration. But his children, they'll remember an absent father, a man who could explain rocket science but couldn't ask about their day. A father who provided everything material but nothing emotional. That's his real legacy, whether he acknowledges it or not. Sarah's second article, published 3 weeks later with the headline, The Achievement Trap, When Success Costs Everything That Matters. It opened with Justine's story, but expanded to explore dozens of similar cases. A cardiac surgeon whose 3 marriages failed because he was never home. A lawyer who made partner but missed her children's entire childhood. A tech CEO who built a billion-dollar company but died with no one at his bedside because he'd alienated everyone who loved him. The article went viral even faster than the first one. Within days, major news networks were discussing the phenomenon. Think pieces appeared with titles like The Myth of Work-Life Balance for High Achievers and Why Success Culture is Destroying Families. Companies started hosting workshops on emotional intelligence and work-life integration. Business schools began incorporating discussions about relationship costs of ambition into their curricula. Therapy practices specializing in high-achieving couples saw waiting lists double. Most surprisingly, some high-profile executives started speaking publicly about their own struggles. A well-known venture capitalist wrote an essay about recognizing he'd become emotionally absent and the steps he was taking to change. A Fortune 500 CEO announced she was stepping down to spend more time with her teenage children before they left for college. The conversation was shifting. Slowly, but shifting. Justine received an invitation to speak at a TED conference. The topic, what I learned from loving someone who couldn't love me back. She accepted. Standing in her closet choosing an outfit for the talk, her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Justine, it's Elon. She sat down on her bed, surprised. Hi. I read the second article, the one about achievement traps and costs. And there was a long pause. I called a therapist, a real one this time, someone who specializes in autism and relationships. I have my first appointment next week. Justine felt her heart skip. Really? I can't promise it'll change anything. I'm 53 years old. But Griffin called me last week and I realized, couldn't remember the last real conversation we had. Not about technical things, about his life. And I thought, maybe you were right. Maybe I should try. That's good, Elon. That's really good. It's probably too late for a lot of things, but maybe not for everything. After they hung up, Justine sat quietly on her bed. Maybe he would change. Maybe he wouldn't, but at least he was trying. And sometimes, trying was where healing began. In the weeks following Sarah's second article, Justine's life transformed in ways she hadn't anticipated. Her inbox overflowed with messages, her phone rang constantly with interview requests, and 3 publishers approached her about expanding her story into a full book. But 3 responses mattered more than all the others combined. The first came on a Sunday afternoon in late April. Justine was in her garden, planting tomatoes with Saxon and Damien when her phone rang. It was Griffin. Mom, can we talk? Like, really talk? Of course, honey. What's going on? She could hear him take a deep breath. I've been seeing a therapist. Started a few months ago, and we've been working through a lot of stuff about Dad. About growing up feeling like I wasn't interesting enough for him to pay attention to. Justine's heart ached. Griffina. No, let me finish. Always thought something was wrong with me, that if I was smarter, more impressive, more like him, then he'd care. I spent my whole childhood trying to be worthy of his attention, building robots, learning to code, studying physics, all to impress someone who barely noticed. Tears streamed down Justine's face. Baby, there was never anything wrong with you. I know that now. That's what therapy's teaching me. The article you did, where you explained about Dad's autism and alexithymia, it helped me understand. It wasn't about me not being enough. It was about him not being able to connect, period. Griffin's voice was shaky but determined. And I wanted to call and say thank you. Thank you for telling the truth. Thank you for explaining what was really happening. Thank you for being there for all of us when Dad couldn't be. You gave us everything, Mom. Everything that mattered. Justine was openly crying now. Saxon and Damien looked up from their planting, concerned, but she waved that she was okay. You were always enough, Griffin. You were always more than enough. I'm sorry you spent your childhood thinking otherwise. I'm working on it. But Mom, here's the thinga. I'm not angry anymore. I'm sad for Dad, actually. He missed out on knowing us. He missed watching us grow up. He'll never have what we have here, this family, this connection. He's got rockets and cars, but he doesn't have this. And that's his loss, not ours. After they hung up, Justine sat in her garden crying and smiling at the same time. Her son had found peace. He'd stopped waiting for validation from someone who couldn't give it. That was healing she could never have given Hema. He'd had to find it himself. The second response came via email from Vivian. Mom, I've been asked to give a keynote speech at a conference for LGBTQ+ youth. They want me to talk about my experience coming out in a family where acceptance wasn't guaranteed. They want me to talk about choosing myself over family expectations. I'm going to do it, and I'm going to talk about you are, how you showed me what unconditional love looks like. How you demonstrated that real family is built on acceptance and presence, not DNA and money. I know my relationship with Dad is complicated for you. You want us to reconcile, I know you do. But I need you to understand, walking away from him was the healthiest choice I ever made. Loving someone who rejects your fundamental identity is self-destruction. I chose myself. And I learned that from watching you finally choose yourself after years of making yourself smaller for him. Thank you for showing me it's okay to walk away from people who can't see you, even if they're family, even if they're famous, even if the world thinks they're geniuses. I love you. A circumflex V. Justine read the email 3 times, her emotions swirling. Pride in her daughter's courage. Sadness that Vivian had to make such a painful choice. Relief that Vivian prioritized her own well-being. And yes, a small persistent grief that her children didn't have the father they deserved. She wrote back, "I'm proud of you beyond words. You're right, walking away from toxicity, even when it's family, is strength, not weakness. I support you completely. You don't owe anyone access to you, not even your father. Especially not someone who refuses to see and accept who you truly are. Love you more than the stars. A circumflex, Mom." The third response came in person, and it surprised her most of all. It was a Thursday evening when her doorbell rang. She opened it to find Tallulah Riley standing there, looking uncertain. "I hope it's okay that I came by unannounced," Tallulah said. "I'm in LA for work and thought maybe we could talk." "Of course," Justine said, inviting her inside. "Would you like tea?" They sat in Justine's living room, 2 women who'd loved the same complicated man, who'd experienced the same patterns of abandonment and disappointment. "I wanted to thank you in person," Tallulah began, "for telling our story, because it is our story, even though the details differ. The emotional arc is identical." She set down her teacup carefully. "After your articles came out, I started therapy too, real, deep therapy. And I realized something. I married Elon twice because I was addicted to trying to fix him. I thought if I could just love him enough, understand him enough, be patient enough, he'd finally be able to connect. But you can't love someone into emotional availability." "No," Justine agreed quietly. "You can't. I wasted my 20s and 30s on someone emotionally unavailable. And it wasn't just a loner after him. I dated other unavailable men because I'd learned that pattern. Love meant suffering. Connection meant always reaching for someone just out of reach." Tallulah's eyes were bright with unshed tears. "But reading your story, understanding the neuroscience behind Elon's behavior, realizing it wasn't personal, it freed me. I wasn't unlovable. He wasn't cruel. We were just fundamentally incompatible, and kept trying to force compatibility where it couldn't exist." "I felt the same way," Justine admitted. "For years, I blamed myself. Thought I wasn't interesting enough, supportive enough, understanding enough. It took me a decade to realize. I could have been perfect and it wouldn't have mattered, because the issue wasn't me. It was his incapacity for the kind of intimacy I needed." They talked for hours about the specific memories that haunted them. The holidays Elon missed, the conversations that went nowhere, the feeling of being alone while married, the relief of divorce mixed with the grief of failed dreams. "Do you think he'll actually change?" Tallulah asked. "You said he called a therapist." "Honestly, I don't know. Part of me hopes so, for the kids' sake, but I'm not holding my breath. Real change requires sustained effort and vulnerability. 2 things Elon has spent his entire life avoiding." "What if he does change, though?" Tallulah pressed. "What if in 5 years he's a different person who can actually be present and emotionally available?" Justine thought about this carefully. "Then I'll be happy for him and for any future relationships he has, but it won't change what we experienced. It won't give me back the years I lost or repair my children's childhoods. If Elon becomes capable of love, good, but it's too late for us. We've moved on." "Have we, though?" Tallulah asked quietly. "Really moved on, or are we still processing the damage?" "Both," Justine said. "Moving on doesn't mean the damage disappears. It means you learn to carry it without letting it define you. I'm not Elon's damaged ex-wife anymore. I'm Justine Wilson, writer, mother, survivor. The experience shaped me, but it doesn't own me." As Tallulah was leaving, she hugged Justine tightly. "Thank you for your bravery, for speaking up, for helping women like us understand we're not alone and we are not crazy." "Thank you for understanding," Justine replied. for validating my experience by sharing yours. That night, Justine sat at her desk and wrote in her journal, 3 responses today that mattered more than all the fame or attention. Griffin is healing and no longer blames himself. Vivian is choosing herself and living authentically. Talular is finding freedom from patterns of unavailable love. This is why I spoke up. Not to destroy Elon, not for revenge or money or attention, but for Thesa, for the healing that happens when truth is spoken, for the freedom that comes from understanding you weren't the problem. If my pain can prevent someone else's, it was worth it. If my story helps one woman leave earlier, or one man seek help sooner, or one child understand it wasn't their fault, it was all worth it. It was 2 a.m. on a Tuesday in early May when Justine's phone rang, jerking her awake. She reached for it groggily, squinting at the screen. Elon's name appeared. Her first thought was panica. Had something happened to one of the children? She answered immediately. Elon, what's wrong? Are the kids okay? They're fine. His voice was quiet, rough. I'm sorry for calling so late. I couldn't sleep. I've been thinking about everything. About what you wrote, about Texas, about everything. Justine sat up in bed, turning on the lamp. Are you okay? No, I don't think I am. There was a vulnerability in his voice she'd never heard before. I've been going to therapy, 3 sessions so far, and it's hard, harder than building rockets, harder than saving Tesla from bankruptcy. This emotional stuff is the hardest thing I've ever attempted. That's honest, Justine said carefully. My therapist asked me to do an exercise, to list the most important moments of my life and then identify who I shared them with, who was there, physically and emotionally. He paused, and Justine heard him take a shaky breath. First successful SpaceX launcher was alone in my office watching on a monitor. Tesla's first profitable quarter, celebrated by sending emails to investors. When we landed a rocket vertically for the first Timia, stood in mission control surrounded by engineers, but nobody who actually knew me. Nobody I could turn to and say we did it, and have them understand what it meant to me personally, not just technically. Justine listened silently, letting him continue. Then she asked about painful moments. Nevada's death, went to work the next day and never talked about it again. Our divorcia left papers on a counter and moved out while you were sleeping. Vivian legally disowning me, found out from a news alert on my phone. His voice cracked. Every significant moment of my life, good or bad, I've been essentially alone. By choice, because I didn't know how to let people in. Because I told myself emotions were inefficient and connection was a distraction. Because I optimized for achievement instead of relationship. Why are you telling me this? Justine asked gently. Because I need to say it out loud to someone who knows what I'm talking about. Someone who lived through what I did to them. My therapist is patient and professional, but you were there. You tried to reach me for 8 years and couldn't let you in. And I need you to know that I finally understand what I did, what I lost. Justine felt tears starting. This was the conversation she'd needed 20 years ago, but it was happening now at 2 a.m. with decades of damage already done. I can't sleep, Elon continued. I lie awake thinking about moments I missed. Griffin's science fair, Vivian coming out, Saxon's soccer games, all the tiny daily moments that make up a childhood. I was building the future, but I missed the present. I missed everything that actually matters. Ilonas, do you think I'm a bad person? He asked suddenly. I need to know. You knew me better than anyone. Do you think I'm just broken beyond repair? Justine took a moment to find the right words. No, I don't think you're a bad person. I think you're a person who's very good at some things and very bad at others, like everyone. The difference is, your bad parts hurt people and your good parts change the world. It's complicated. My therapist says I need to stop thinking in binary terms, good or bad, success or failure. She says I can be both brilliant and emotionally limited, both visionary and terrible at relationships, that holding both truths simultaneously is growth. She's right, Justine said. There was a long silence. Justine could hear him breathing on the other end and the faint sound of wind. She wondered where he was, probably at some facility somewhere, unable to sleep, grappling with revelations most people work through in their 20s. "I can't fix the past," Elon said finally. "I know that. I can't give you back the 8 years you spent trying to reach me. I can't give the kids back their childhoods with an absent father. Nevada has been dead for 22 years, and I never properly grieved him. I can't undo any of it." "No," Justine agreed, "you can't. But maybe I can do better going forward. Maybe I can actually be present for whatever time I have left with the kids. Maybe can learn to have a conversation that isn't just about technical specifications or business strategy. Maybe it's not too late for everything." Justine felt her heart soften despite herself. "I wish could tell you it's easy, but emotional growth is the hardest work there is, especially when you're starting in your 50s. "I'm good at hard work," Elon said, and she heard the faintest hint of his old confidence. "This is different from the hard work, you know," Justine warned. "You can't optimize emotions. You can't apply engineering principles to human connection. You have to be vulnerable, messy, uncertain. You have to feel things you can't control. That's going to be incredibly uncomfortable for you." "It already is, but uncomfortable isn't the same as impossible." They talked for 2 hours. About Nevada, Finalia really talked about their baby who died and the grief they never processed together. About the kids and how each one was doing. About the marriages that failed and the patterns that kept repeating. "Do you hate me?" Elon asked at one point. "No," Justine said honestly. "I did for a while, but now I mostly feel sad. Sad for what we could have been if you'd been willing to work on yourself earlier. Sad for our children who deserved better. Sad for you, because you've achieved everything you set out to do and you're still not happy." "How do you know I'm not happy?" "Because happy people don't call their ex-wife at 2 in the morning struggling to sleep. Because happiness comes from connection, not achievement. And you've spent your entire life running from connection." Elon was quiet. Then, "I wish could go back and do it differently." "But you wouldn't," Justine said gently. "If you could go back, you'd make the same choices. The companies, the mission, the worker, it's who you are. You can't regret the path that led you here while still believing it was the right path. That's what makes it so hard. I do believe the work mattered. Tesla is accelerating sustainable energy. SpaceX is making humanity multiplanetary. These things needed to happen, but I'm realizing they didn't need to cost what they cost. Could have done both, had changed the world and been present for my family. I just didn't know how. And now I'm trying to learn. Better late than never, right?" Before they hung up, Elon said one more thing. "I'm sorry it couldn't be what you needed, what the kids needed. I'm sorry I was so broken and so unwilling to acknowledge it. You deserved so much better, Justine." "Thank you for saying that," she whispered. "It means more than you know." After the call ended, Justine sat in bed staring at her phone. It wasn't the closure she'd imagined. It wasn't complete healing or perfect redemption, but it was honest. And sometimes, honesty was where forgiveness began. 6 months after her articles were published, Justine was invited to speak at a conference for family therapists in San Francisco. The topic was high achievement families and emotional absence. She'd become an unexpected voice in conversations about work-life balance, neurodivergence in relationships, and the hidden costs of success. But there was still one piece of the story she hadn't fully revealed. One document in the folder she'd kept back, even from Sarah's articles. The psychiatrist's evaluation had been explosive enough. But there was something else, something that explained not just Elon's behavior, but the full scope of what she'd endured. The night before her speech, Justine sat in her hotel room in San Francisco, looking through the folder one more time. Her hands trembled as she pulled out a document she'd read only twice before, both times nearly destroying her. It was dated May 2007, 2 months after Elon's psychiatric evaluation. It was a letter Elon had written to himself, found tucked in the back of the folder. Not typed, handwritten in his distinctive scrawl on pages from a yellow legal pad. The raw, unfiltered thoughts of a man trying to understand himself. Justine had kept this letter secret because it was so painfully private, so nakedly honest about Elon's internal world. But she realized now that this was the piece that completed the story. This explained the real nightmare, not just what Elon did, but why. She photographed each page carefully, then sat down at the hotel desk and began writing an addendum to her story. Tomorrow, after her speech, she would publish this final piece. The complete truth. The letter began. The psychiatrist says I have alexithymia. That I can't identify or describe emotions, mine or others. That when someone is sad or happy or angry, I see the behavioral outputs but don't instinctively understand the internal state causing them. She's right. I've known this about myself since I was young, but I thought everyone was like this. I thought emotions were inefficient processing errors that some people indulged in and I'd evolved past. But apparently, most humans actually feel things in ways I don't. They don't have to intellectually decode emotions, they just experience them directly. This explains so much. Why people cry at movies, and I sit there wondering what subroutine in their brain is malfunctioning. Why Justine says she needs me, and I can't understand what that means beyond physical presence, which I provide through financial support and occasional proximity. Why, when Nevada died, I couldn't access whatever grief protocol everyone expected me to run. Justine's hands shook reading this passage again. He'd known. Even back then, he'd understood he was different, and he'd chosen to see it as evolution rather than limitation. The letter continued. The psychiatrist wants me to do therapy to develop emotional awareness and connection skills. But why? What would that accomplish? I've built successful companies by not being distracted by emotional noise, by treating problems as logic puzzles instead of interpersonal dramas, by optimizing for outcomes rather than feelings. Justine is unhappy. I know this intellectualia. She cries frequently, expresses dissatisfaction with various aspects of our life, makes requests for changes in my behavior. But I don't feel her unhappiness the way she seems to need me to. I can't generate appropriate emotional responses on demand. And when I try to solve her problems logically, hire more help, provide more resources, explain why my work is important, she gets more upset. She wants something I don't know how to give. The real question is, should I try to change this about myself, or should I accept that I'm optimized differently and find people who can interface with my architecture? Justine remembered the months after he'd written this. She'd been drowning in depression with the twins and newborn triplets, begging for emotional support, while Elon had been writing clinical analyses of why he couldn't provide it. The next section was even more devastating. Analysis of the situation. I selected Justine as a partner based on compatibility metrics at the time: intelligent, shared interests, physically attractive, supportive of my goals. Marriage contract executed successfully. Reproduction goals achieved, 5 offspring, good genetic outcomes. However, ongoing maintenance requirements of the relationship exceed my available emotional bandwidth. Cost-benefit analysis suggests the relationship is net negative to mission objectives. Optimal solution: terminate current partnership, restructure life to minimize emotional obligations. There it was, the smoking gun. Elon had literally done a cost-benefit analysis of their marriage and determined she was net negative to mission objectives. While she was home with 5 babies under age 3, believing they were a family working through hard times, he was calculating the optimal time to terminate their partnership. The letter continued with the part that had haunted Justine for 17 years. But there's a problem with the termination strategy. Society expects certain emotional performances around divorce, especially when children are involved. I'm supposed to feel guilt, sadness, conflict. I'm supposed to agonize over the decision. I don't. I feel relief at the prospect of optimizing my life structure. I feel irritation that the process will be complex and time-consuming. I feel nothing about ending the marriage itself. It was a contract that served its purpose and is now hindering progress. Does this make me defective? The psychiatrist implied as much. But defective compared to what? Humans who spend half their cognitive resources processing emotional noise, who make decisions based on feelings rather than logic, who prioritize connection over achievement. I don't think I'm defective. I think I'm differently configured. And if Justine can't operate with my configuration, then we are incompatible systems that should decouple. Justine had read these words twice before, once when she first found the letter in 2008, and once years later when she was in therapy working through the trauma. Each time, they'd shattered her, because this wasn't a man who struggled with emotions and was working to improve. This was someone who'd consciously decided emotions were beneath him. Who'd looked at his wife, the mother of his 5 children, the woman who'd sacrificed everything for Hema, and seen her as a malfunctioning system that needed to be replaced. The final section was what Justine would reveal tomorrow. Decision: I will initiate divorce proceedings in approximately 1 year. This gives me time to restructure finances for optimal post-divorce position. Document any behavior that strengthens custody case. Identify next partner with better compatibility parameters. Prepare logistics for minimal disruption to work. I will not tell Justine I've made this decision. There's no logical reason to give advance notice, and every reason not to. She would become emotional, potentially unstable, might take actions detrimental to my position. I'll simply execute when optimal conditions are met. I know this makes me sound cold, calculating, maybe even cruel, but I'm just being honest about how my brain works. I don't have the emotional apparatus to pretend otherwise. Can't generate feelings I don't have. Can only optimize for outcomes. The mission matters more than any individual relationship. Always has, always will. That's not a flaw, it's a feature. It's what allows me to do things others can't. If the cost is that I can't maintain traditional intimate relationships, so be it. History will judge me on what I built, not who I loved. Justine closed the folder and sat back, overwhelmed by the memory of finding this letter 17 years ago. She'd been packing Elon's office when the divorce papers appeared on the counter. She'd found this letter and realized he'd been planning to leave her for a year. While she'd been trying to save their marriage, he'd been strategizing his exit. That was the real nightmare. Not that he'd left, but that he'd stayed for an entire year while secretly planning his escape, documenting her behavior, preparing his legal position, all while she believed they were working through difficulties together. It was the ultimate betrayal, not of lover, but of basic humanity. He treated her like a hostile acquisition he needed to carefully exit, not a person he'd promised forever to. That night, Justine barely slept. In the morning, she gave her speech to the family therapists, and afterward, she made an announcement. I've held back one final piece of information, not because I was afraid of consequences, but because I was trying to protect Elon from himself. Trying to believe there was still some humanity in how he treated me. But I realize now that the full truth needs to be told. She distributed copies of Elon's letter to the audience, redacting only the most personal family details. This is what it looks like inside the mind of someone with severe alexithymia who refuses treatment. This is someone who intellectually understands he's supposed to have feelings but can't generate them. And rather than see this as a problem to work on, he sees it as an advantage. As optimization. The room was silent as the therapists read. The real nightmare wasn't the divorce. It was spending 8 years married to someone who was running cost-benefit analyses on whether I was worth keeping. It was believing we were partners working through difficulties when he was actually planning his exit strategy. It was loving someone who literally could not love me back because he'd decided emotions were inefficient noise. Dr. Chen, who'd been sitting in the front row, stood up. Justine, this is remarkable documentation. This level of self-awareness combined with complete unwillingness to change her, it's rare to see it written out so explicitly. "That's why I'm sharing it now," Justine said. "Because there are millions of people in relationships with partners who think like this. Partners who see love as a transaction, marriage as a contract, and other humans as systems to optimize. And those people need to know, you can't fix this with more love, more patience, more understanding. You're not dealing with someone who's trying and failing. You're dealing with someone who's consciously choosing achievement over connection." After the conference, Justine published the letter excerpts online with an essay titled, "The Marriage Nightmare: Inside the Mind of Someone Who Chose Not to Love." It went viral within hours. The world finally saw the complete picture, not just that Elon was on the autism spectrum, not just that he was emotionally unavailable, but that he'd consciously, deliberately chosen to be that way, that he'd analyzed the situation and decided connection wasn't worth the effort. The response to Elon's letter was immediate and unprecedented. Within 12 hours of Justine publishing the excerpts, it became the most discussed topic on every social media platform. News outlets from CNN to the BBC ran special segments. Psychologists, ethicists, and relationship experts weighed in from every corner of the internet. Justine sat in her living room with all 5 of her children gathered around her. They decided to be together when the letter went public, knowing the reaction would be intense. "Mom, Twitter is absolutely exploding," Griffin said, scrolling through his phone. "I mean, more than with the previous articles, this is different." He was right. The previous revelations had sparked debate, but this letter, Elon's own words describing his wife as a system to optimize and his marriage as a contract to terminatia, hit a nerve that went beyond typical celebrity gossip. Vivian read some of the responses aloud. "This is the most chilling thing I've ever read about marriage." He literally cost-benefit analyzed his wife like she was a business decision. This explains so much about how he treats employees and critics. The reactions fell into distinct camps. The defenders argued this was a private document that should never have been shared. They claimed Justine was violating Elon's privacy out of vindictiveness. Some accused her of trying to destroy him now that he'd started therapy. He's trying to change, and she publishes his most vulnerable thoughts from 20 years ago? That's cruel. But they were in the minority. The shocked expressed horror at the clinical coldness of the letter. Thousands of comments echoed the same sentiment. "I knew he was emotionally unavailable, but this is sociopathic." Mental health professionals pushed back against the word sociopathic, explaining that alexithymia and autism were neurological differences, not personality disorders. But the emotional impact remained. People were disturbed by Elon's complete lack of emotional engagement. The validated were the largest group, people who'd experienced similar relationships and finally had language for what they'd endured. One viral tweet read, "My ex-husband was exactly like this. I spent years thinking I was crazy or too needy. This letter validates what I lived through. Thank you, Justine Musk, for showing me I wasn't alone." A woman named Jennifer Martinez wrote an essay that got picked up by major publications. "I was married to a surgeon who saw our family as a system he managed between shifts. Reading Elon's letter, I recognized my ex-husband's exact thought process. These men exist everywhere, in medicine, law, tech, finance. They're brilliant at their work and empty in their relationships. And we, their partners, destroy ourselves trying to be enough." Thousands of similar stories flooded social media. The hashtag #optimized out started trending, people sharing experiences of being treated as variables in someone else's equation rather than as human beings deserving love. Saxon put down his phone and looked at his mother seriously. "Mom, are you okay? This is a lot of attention." "I'm okay," Justine assured him. "I knew this would be big, but it needed to be told. Not just for me, but for everyone who's lived this and thought they were the problem." Kai was reading something on his laptop. "There's a think piece here from a philosophy professor about whether people like Dad should even get married. Like, If you're incapable of emotional connection, is it ethical to enter into relationships with people who need that connection? What's the conclusion? Justine asked. She argues that people have the right to be themselves, but they also have an obligation to be honest about their limitations. That Dad's real failure wasn't being on the spectrum or having alexithymia, it was knowing about these limitations and deliberately hiding them from you, marrying you under false pretenses. Damien, the quietest of the triplets, spoke up. Do you think Dad knew he was lying, or did he genuinely think providing money and resources was the same as love? Justine considered this carefully. I think he genuinely believed his version of partnership was sufficient. That's what makes it so tragic. He didn't set out to hurt anyone. He just couldn't understand what people actually need from relationships because his brain doesn't process those needs as valid. Her phone rang. It was Sarah Chen, the journalist who'd started this whole journey. Justine, every major outlet wants interviews. 60 Minutes, the New York Times, international press. This letter has broken through in a way that's unprecedented. Are you prepared for what's coming? I think so, Justine said. What's the general sentiment? Mixed, but leaning heavily towards support for you. Elon's defenders are loud, but they are outnumbered. Most people are horrified that he wrote this letter and then stayed married to you for another year while planning his exit. The calculation of Ita, the coldnesser, it's shocking even people who have defended him before. After hanging up, Justine checked her own social media. Her inbox was flooded. She scrolled through, reading. Thank you for your courage. My father was like Thesa, brilliant and empty. I grew up thinking successful people couldn't love. You're breaking that myth. I'm a man with autism, and this letter makes me furious. Having alexithymia doesn't mean you get to treat people as optimization problems. Elon had resources to get help and chose not to. That's on him. I left my husband 3 years ago because he treated our marriage like a business contract. Everyone said I was throwing away a good thing. This letter proves I made the right choice. But one message stood out. It was from Grimes, Elon's ex-partner and mother of 3 of his children. Justine, I read the letter. I wish I'd seen it before I got involved with him. Everything you described, I experienced too. The cost-benefit analysis approach to relationships, the inability to be emotionally present, the feeling that you're being managed rather than loved. Thank you for speaking truth. Our children deserve to understand their father, even if the truth is painful. A circumflex C. Justine showed the message to her children. They were silent, processing that their half-sibling's mother had confirmed the same patterns. So it never changed, Griffin said quietly. With Tallulah, with Grimes, with anyone, he's the same with everyone. Yes, Justine confirmed. That's what I've been trying to explain. It's not personal. It's how he's wired, and he's chosen not to work on changing that wiring. By evening, Elon still hadn't responded publicly. His silence was notable. Usually, he would have tweeted something defensive or dismissive by now, but his ex account remained quiet. At 11 p.m., Justine's phone rang. Elon, I saw what you published, he said. His voice was flat, carefully controlled. And that letter was private. Written to myself, you had no right to. I had every right, Justine interrupted. That letter explained 17 years of my life. It explained why nothing I did was ever enough, why you could walk away so easily, why you left divorce papers on a counter like I was a business merger you were unwinding. People needed to understand what I was dealing with. I was 29 years old when I wrote that. Was trying to understand myself. You were 36 when you wrote it, Elon, and you weren't trying to understand yourself. You were justifying why you didn't need to change. You analyzed your inability to connect and decided it was a feature, not a bug. You chose yourself over everyone who loved you. Silence on the line. My therapist called me after your letter went public, Elon said finally. She asked if I still think like that, if I still see relationships as systems to optimize. What did you tell her? I told her, I'm trying not to, but it's how my brain naturally processes things. Emotions are still noise, have to consciously decode. Connection still feels inefficient compared to work. I'm trying to override those instincts, but they are strong. Justine felt a complicated mix of emotions. He was being honest, maybe for the first time in their entire relationship. But the honesty confirmed what she'd always known, he would always have to work against his nature to connect with people. It would never be natural for him. The letter you published, Elon continued, the kids are seeing it, reading how I thought about you, about our marriage. That's going to damage my relationship with them even more. Your choices damaged your relationship with them, Elon. I'm just documenting the truth. Is this punishment for everything I did wrong? No, Justine said firmly. This is education. For every person in a relationship with someone like you, for every child wondering why their parent can't love them properly, for every woman blaming herself for not being enough. This isn't about you anymore, it's about them. 6 months after publishing Elon's letter, spring arrived in Los Angeles with unusual warmth. Justine stood in her backyard watching her children, no longer children really, but young adults, gathered for a Sunday barbecue. Griffin, now 21, was at the grill with Saxon, debating the optimal temperature for cooking chicken. Kai was showing Damien something on his laptop, a coding project for his computer science class. Vivian sat in a lawn chair, her girlfriend beside her, both laughing at something on their phones. This was what mattered, not the viral articles or the global conversations or the book deal publishers were offering. This moment, with her 5 children healthy and whole and together, having survived having Elon Musk as a father. Her phone buzzed, an email from Dr. Chen with the subject line, Foundation Launch. Justine had used some of the money from licensing her story to start a nonprofit called the Presence Project. Its mission, supporting partners and children of emotionally unavailable high achievers. They offered therapy scholarships, support groups, educational resources, and advocacy for family-friendly workplace policies. Dr. Chen's email contained news. We've received applications from over 2,000 people seeking services in just the first month. Your story reached people, Justine. They're ready to heal. Justine showed the email to Griffin, who'd walked over with a plate of food. That's amazing, Mom. You took something painful and made it purposeful. That's all Eva wanted, Justine said, for the pain to mean something beyond just my own suffering. Griffin sat down beside her. Can I tell you something? Something I haven't told anyone yet. Of course. I've been talking to Dad. Like, actually talking, real conversations. He calls me every Tuesday now. We talk for about 30 minutes. Justine felt her heart skip. How's that going? It's weird, Griffin admitted. He's trying really hard. Too hard sometimes, like he's following a script about how to have emotional conversations. But he's showing up. That's more than he ever did before. What do you talk about? First few calls were about my classes, which was safe territory for him. But last week, he asked me how I was doing emotionally. Actually used the word emotionally. And when I told him I've been anxious about graduation and future plans, he didn't try to solve it immediately. He just listened. For like 5 whole minutes, he just listened. Griffin's eyes were bright with unshed tears. It's not perfect. He still says awkward things. He still sometimes treats my feelings like problems to debug. But Mom, he's trying. He's actually trying. Justine hugged her son tightly. I'm glad, baby. I really am. I know you don't want to hear this, but I think your articles helped. They forced him to see what he'd done, what he'd lost. And I think for the first time, he actually cares about fixing it. Later, after the kids had left and Justine was cleaning up, she found Vivian still sitting in the backyard, alone now. Mind if I join you? Justine asked. It's your yard, Vivian smiled. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the sunset paint the sky orange and pink. Griffin told me he's been talking to Dad, Vivian said finally. He wanted to know if I'm mad about it. You. No, Griffin can have whatever relationship he wants with Dad. That's his choice. She paused. But But it's not my choice, not right now, maybe not ever. I support you either way, Justine said firmly. I know you do, that's why I can be honest with you. Vivian turned to face her mother. The thing is, I don't need Dad's acceptance anymore. I spent years wanting it, aching for it, thinking if I could just make him understand me, everything would be okay. But I don't need that now. I've built a life without his validation, and it's a good life. She gestured to the empty chair where her girlfriend had been sitting. I have people who see me, who love me for who actually am, who don't need me to be someone else to be worthy of attention. Why would I go back to begging for scraps from someone who fundamentally rejected me? You wouldn't, Justine said, and you shouldn't. But also don't hate him anymore, Vivian continued. Your articles helped with that too. Understanding his alexithymia, reading his letter, seeing how his brain processes relationships, it helped me understand it was never about me being wrong or insufficient. It was about him being incapable. That's growth, Justine observed. Yeah, therapy helped too. I've been working through a lot. Vivian smiled. My therapist says I'm one of the most emotionally intelligent people she's worked with. Ironic, right? Elon Musk's daughter is the opposite of him. Maybe because I had you showing me what emotional presence looks like. Justine felt tears start. That's the best thing anyone's ever said to me. They hugged, mother and daughter, both survivors of loving someone who couldn't love them back. The next morning, Justine had a Zoom call with a group of women who'd contacted her through the Presence Project. They met monthly, a support group for people currently in or recovering from relationships with emotionally unavailable partners. There were 12 women on the call. They represented different backgrounds, professions, and geographic locations. But their stories were hauntingly similar. A doctor married to a hedge fund manager who worked 100-hour weeks and treated their family like a portfolio to manage. A teacher whose software engineer husband couldn't have a conversation that wasn't about code or efficiency. A lawyer married to a politician who'd mastered emotional performance for voters but couldn't generate genuine feelings at home. One woman, crying, said, I keep thinking if I'm just more patient, more understanding, more supportive, he'll finally see me. But it's been 15 years. When do I stop hoping? Justine answered gently. When you realize that hope is costing you yourself. Hope is beautiful when it's invested in someone willing to change. But when you're hoping for someone to become a different person with a different neurological architecture, you're hoping for something impossible. And that kind of hope becomes self-destruction. Another woman asked, but what about the kids? Don't they deserve an intact family? They deserve parents who are whole people, Justine responded. I spent years staying in a dead marriage thinking I was protecting my children, but I was teaching them that love means accepting emotional abandonment. That success excuses absence, that you should make yourself small for someone else's big dreams. Those aren't lessons I wanted them to learn. The women nodded, several wiping tears. What I wish someone had told me 20 years ago is this. You cannot love someone into emotional availability. You cannot be understanding enough, patient enough, or supportive enough to change someone's fundamental capacity for connection. You can only decide whether you're willing to live with their limitations. A woman named Patricia spoke up. So should we all just leave? That's the answer. No, Justine said firmly. The answer is different for everyone. Some partners with emotional limitations genuinely work on themselves. They get therapy, they learn strategies, they put in consistent effort even when it's hard. If that's happening, staying might make sense. But if your partner refuses to acknowledge the problem, refuses to get help, treats your needs as unreasonable demands, and expects you to accommodate their emotional absence indefinitely, then leaving might be self-preservation, not failure. She looked at each woman on the screen. Stayed too long. 8 years in a marriage where I disappeared piece by piece. I don't regret my children, but I regret the years I lost. I'm telling you this so maybe you won't make the same mistake. Your life matters. Your emotional needs are valid. You deserve to be seen and loved by someone capable of seeing and loving you. After the call ended, Justine sat quietly at her desk. Her phone showed dozens of unread messages, interview requests, speaking invitations. Her life had transformed completely from that rainy November evening when she'd first called Sarah Chen. But more than the external changes, she'd transformed internally. She was no longer the ghost in her own life. 1 year after the first article published, Justine received an invitation that surprised her. A technology conference in Austin, the same city where Elon Musk wanted her to speak on a panel about work-life balance in high-achievement industries. The other panelists, CEOs, venture capitalists, and Elon Musk himself. Her first instinct was to decline. But then she thought, why should I hide? Why should I be the one who's uncomfortable? She told her truth. She had nothing to be ashamed of. She accepted. The conference was in late November 2025, almost exactly 1 year since she'd first met Sarah at that coffee shop. Justine flew to Austin, checked into her hotel, and prepared her remarks. The panel was scheduled for the final day. When she walked into the large auditorium, over 1,000 people filled the seats. She spotted Elon backstage, talking to an assistant. He saw her and went still. They hadn't seen each other in person since their conversation at the Gigafactory 8 months ago. "Justine," he said, walking over. "Elon. I didn't know you'd be on this panel until yesterday. My team should have told me." "Would you have backed out if you'd known?" she asked. He considered this. "Probably, but that would have been cowardly. I'm trying to stop running from uncomfortable things." They stood there awkwardly, these two people whose lives had been so entangled and were now so separate. "How are the kids?" Elon asked. "They're good. Griffin says you two have been talking regularly." "Yeah, Tuesday calls. My therapist suggested a consistent schedule. Apparently consistency matters for relationships." He said it like someone learning a foreign language, technically correct, but not quite natural. "It does," Justine confirmed. "I'm not very good at it yet, the emotional stuff, but I'm trying." "I know, Griffin told me." The moderator called them to the stage. They sat on opposite ends of the panel, 5 people between them. The discussion began with questions about innovation, company culture, and scaling businesses. Then the moderator turned to Justine. "You've been quite public about the personal cost of high achievement. What would you say to leaders who feel they must choose between career success and family presence?" Justine took a breath. She'd prepared for this. "I'd say that's a false choice. You don't have to choose between achievement and presence. You have to choose between healthy ambition and destructive obsession, between building something meaningful and using work to avoid emotional growth, between being great at your job and being absent from your life." She glanced briefly at Elon before continuing. "I was married to someone who believed he had to sacrifice relationships for his mission. And yes, he built incredible things. But that belief was his choice, not a requirement. There are plenty of successful people who manage to be present for their families. It requires boundaries, prioritization, and the emotional maturity to recognize that humans aren't machines that can optimize endlessly." A woman in the audience raised her hand. "But what about people who are neurologically different, who struggle with emotional connection not by choice but by wiring?" "That's a fair question," Justine acknowledged. "And the answer is, neurodivergence explains behavior, but it doesn't excuse refusing to work on yourself. If you know you process emotions differently, you have a responsibility to get support, develop strategies, and be honest with people about your limitations. You don't get to hurt people and then hide behind a diagnosis." The moderator turned to Elon. "Mr. Musk, you've been public about being on the autism spectrum. How do you respond to that?" The auditorium went silent. Everyone knew about Justine's articles, about the letter, about their history. This was the moment people had been waiting for. Elon was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke, his voice measured. "She's right. I spent decades using my work as an excuse to avoid dealing with my emotional limitations. Told myself the mission justified everything. That changing the world was more important than being present for my family. That was wrong." A murmur went through the audience. I'm 54 years old, and I'm just now learning things most people figure out in their 20s. How to have a conversation about feelings. How to show up for people even when it's uncomfortable. How to prioritize relationships alongside work instead of treating them as optional add-ons. He looked down the panel at Justine. I destroyed my marriage because I refused to do this work when it mattered. I damaged my relationships with my children because I thought providing money was the same as providing love. And I've spent the last year in intensive therapy trying to undo decades of that thinking. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. Justine felt her chest tighten. This was more vulnerable than Elon had ever been publicly. So to answer your question, Elon continued, addressing the moderator, you don't have to choose between success and family, but you do have to choose to do the emotional work. And for people like me, that work is harder than building rockets, but it's also more important. Another audience member asked, do you regret your choices, Mr. Musk? Would you do things differently? Elon paused. That's complicated. I can't regret the path that led to Tesla and SpaceX succeeding. Those companies matter. They're accelerating sustainable energy and making humanity multiplanetary. But I can regret how I treated the people closest to me. I can regret the pain I caused. I can commit to doing better going forward. After the panel ended, Elon approached Justine as she was gathering her things. That was hard, he said simply. Vulnerability usually is. Can we talk, privately, just for a few minutes? They found a quiet conference room away from the crowds, sat across from each other at a small table. I need to tell you something, Elon said. Something I should have said a long time ago but didn't know how. Justine waited. You deserved better. You deserved a partner who was present, who valued emotional connection, who saw you as a person and not a problem to manage. And couldn't be that person. Not because you weren't enough, but because I was so convinced that emotions were inefficient noise that I couldn't see what I was losing. His voice was thick with something that might have been emotion. Nevada deserved a father who grieved with his mother instead of running to work. The kids deserved a dad who showed up to their soccer games and science fairs. You deserved a husband who could hold you when you cried instead of telling you to exercise more. I failed all of you, and I'm sorry. Justine felt tears streaming down her face. Thank you, that means everything. I can't fix the past. I know that, but I want you to know the work you've done, the story you've told, it forced me to look at myself. Really look. And what I saw was someone who'd achieved everything and had nothing that actually mattered. Do you have that now? Justine asked gently. Things that matter. I'm working on it. Tuesday calls with Griffin, trying to rebuild something with the twins and triplets. Even texted Vivian last week. She didn't respond, but I'll keep trying. And I'm in therapy 3 times a week, learning to be human. They sat in silence for a moment. I hope you find peace, Elon, Justine said finally. Real peace, the kind that comes from connection, not achievement. I hope you found it too. I have, she said. That's why I could tell the story, because I'm whole again. The story ends where it began, with a phone call. It was December 2025, 13 months after Justine first contacted Sarah Chen. She was in her home office in Los Angeles, working on the final chapters of her memoir. The afternoon sun streamed through the windows, warming the space where she'd spent countless hours writing, healing, and rebuilding herself. Her phone rang. A young woman's voice, uncertain and hopeful. MS, Musk, my name is Alexandra. I read your articles about your marriage. I'm engaged to a startup founder who reminds me of your descriptions of your ex-husband. He works all the time, can't talk about feelings, says emotions are inefficient, and I'm calling because... Her voice broke. I'm calling because I need to know, should I marry him? Everyone says I'm lucky. He's brilliant, he's going to be rich, he's already successful, but I feel so alone, and I'm scared I'll end up like you did. Justine closed her laptop and gave this young woman her full attention. Only you can answer that, she said gently. But I'll ask you this. When you imagine your life in 10 years, are you in it? Or are you just a supporting character in his story? When you picture your future children, is he really there, or is he a ghost who provides money but no presence? Alexandra was quiet. And here's the most important question. Does he see his emotional unavailability as a problem worth fixing? Or does he see it as just who he is, and you need to accept it? He says that's just how he is, Alexandra whispered. That I knew what I was getting into, that his work has to come first because he's building something important. Then you have your answer, Justine said. He's telling you who he is and what you'll always be competing with. Believe him. But I love him. I loved Elon too, so much it nearly destroyed me. Love isn't enough when it's one-sided. When you're the only one doing the emotional work, when you're shrinking yourself to fit into someone else's life instead of building a life together. She could hear Alexandra crying softly. I'm not saying you shouldn't marry him, Justine continued. I'm saying go in with your eyes open. Know that the emotional loneliness you feel now, it will get worse, not better. The work that comes first now, it will always come first. The discomfort with emotions, that won't magically change. And 10 years from now, you might be sitting where I am, telling your story to someone else, wishing you'd listened to the warning signs. What should I do? Alexandra asked. Ask yourself what you need to be happy, not what he needs, not what society expects, not what looks good on paper. What do you need? And then ask honestly, can this person give me that? Not who you hope he'll become, who he actually is right now. After they hung up, Justine sat in the quiet of her office. How many Alexandras were out there? How many young women standing at crossroads, trying to decide whether love was enough? She picked up her pen and started writing the dedication for her memoir. To every person who loved someone incapable of loving them back. To every child who grew up with an absent parent. To every woman who lost herself and had to fight to be found again. Your pain matters. Your story matters. You matter. And to my 5 incredible children, thank you for teaching me that being present is the most important achievement of all. You saved me by needing me. I love you more than words can say. She looked at the framed photos on her desk. Her children at various ages, smiling and whole despite everything. They were her legacy. Not the marriage that failed, but the humans she'd raised to be emotionally intelligent, present, and capable of real connection. Justine opened her laptop one last time and typed the final paragraph of her memoir. The nightmare of loving Elon Musk taught me something precious. You cannot sacrifice yourself to make someone else whole. You cannot fill someone else's emptiness with your own light. You can only decide whether to stay in darkness with them or step into your own sunlight. I chose sunlight. And I hope anyone reading this who's living in someone else's shadow will choose the same. Because you deserve to be seen, you deserve to be loved. You deserve to exist fully in your own life, not as a supporting character in someone else's story. That's what marriage nightmares teach user, not how to love better, but when to love ourselves enough to walk away. She saved the document, closed her laptop, and looked out the window at the California sunset. Tomorrow, she had lunch with her sister, then a school event for one of the triplets, then an evening to write or rest or simply exist. Her life was fuller, not with money or fame or achievements that would change the world, but with presence, purpose, and peace. She finally had what Elon never could give her, a home that felt like love. We'd love to know, where are you listening from? Drop your location in the comments below. Are you in New York, London, Mumbai, or somewhere else entirely? Let us know. If this story touched your heart or opened your eyes to the hidden costs of emotional absence, please hit that like button. It helps us share these important stories with more people who need to hear them. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more compelling, real-life stories that educate, inspire, and make you think. We bring you stories that matter, stories about resilience, truth, and the human experience. Finally, share this video with your friends and family. You never know who might be living through something similar and needs to hear that they are not alone. Spreading awareness and kindness costs nothing but can change everything. Thank you for listening. Until next time, remember, you deserve to be seen, valued, and loved for who you truly are. Take care.